Hey everybody, this is Mark Lemke, Chicago Blackhawks fan for the last time.
I shed a tear.
Yeah, I'm gonna shed a tear for it. This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network. And you can help support the Batman Universe by heading to patreon.com/Batman Universe. So Tim, before we get to anything that we do on this podcast, what is our new name for the show for this year?
Yes, it's that time again. 2017 is over, and Mark Tiberius Lemke, Chicago Blackhawks fan. It was a great title for a year, even though it was a mouthful, but I think we got on it probably took us a few shows so we could say it in the intro without messing it up, or at least for me. But by the time we got into the middle, I was saying it was coming, streaming off the tip of the tongue like normally. So Mark Tiberius Lemke, Chicago Blackhawks fans, goodbye. But for 2018, we're going to be having another long name, but this time it's going to be in honor of Jordan. Yes, the last three, counting Jordan, our names for the show for every year has been dedicated to our loyal listeners. So for 2018, the Bat-Fans podcast will be now known as Jordan from Smallville, Bat-Cat Shipper. So let me say it again without messing it up. Jordan from Smallville, Bat-Cat Shipper, because we know how much Jordan loves Smallville. And how much he loves the relationship between Batman and Catwoman going on in the comics, and I guess in general the relationship of Batman and Catwoman Jordan loves. So it just seems right to name the episode based off that, what Jordan loves. So that is the new name for 2018. So let's see how long it takes for us to say the whole title without messing it up. And I'm already 0 for 1 on that while unveiling it. So
yeah, and we like the long, complicated names, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So Jordan from Smallville, Bat-Cat Shipper. Right?
So, You're doing better than me already, Dane.
Yeah. Okay, so Jordan from Smallville, Bat-Cat Shipper. Okay, I think I can do this every 2 weeks for the next year, Tim.
Yeah, you got to start practicing.
Yeah. So, Tim, it's a new year, and I'm just wondering, after your 6-hour podcast that you did for The Last Jedi, have you recovered yet?
I have recovered, yes. I think in total from, the bit we talked about The Last Jedi and our review of it for the last episode, and then the 6-hour podcast on The Saga Continues, and then I did the Thunderquack podcast spoiler cast for 2 hours on it. I was a guest on another podcast, the Bizzlecast, where I talked about it. I think I'm almost up to 12 hours of talking about The Last Jedi altogether. So, but yeah, there's still so much to talk about it. And glad to say, because when we did our review of it on our last episode, our final show of 2017, I didn't have, the most positive reaction towards it because I only saw it once. That was my review of my first viewing of it. And I'm glad it worked out where pretty much the first 3 podcasts I did about it, each podcast I recorded reflected how many times I've seen it. So I'm glad I got my initial reactions and review recorded for our show. But even though, the theme of that episode was me being negative on a lot of things, seeing it 4 times now, I could safely say I love the movie. It had a big turnaround on it. The stuff that kind of bothered me, especially with Luke, I've come to appreciate what they were trying to tell with his story, and think it is a great final arc for the character to have. And it was just beautifully done, especially the finale and, with Luke's death and all that, just so beautifully handled. And my other big complaint about Rey, parents being a nobody, I'm not still 100% on board on that, but the more I think about it and the potential that it has, and revolving around the Force and how it's, choosing Rey as an individual to be, pretty much, for lack of better words, the avatar of the light side of the Force in this era to go against Kylo Ren and the dark side. It is a good story being told with someone coming from that horrible upbringing, her parents being a nobody, yet being chosen by the Force to, bring about the light during this time of darkness with Kylo Ren rising to power. So it is a good story being told, even though I just got to get past the fact of how much I wanted, the main hero protagonist of this new trilogy to be part of the Skywalker bloodline. But I'm coming around towards it.
That's the one thing I never really understood. You had that complaint. A lot of fans had that complaint that Rey was a nobody. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, Luke wasn't really he wasn't really a nobody, but Anakin was a nobody. I mean, he was a slave.
Yeah, but it's mainly my big thing is, this is the Skywalker saga being told here, and the event, and then Anakin, he was created by the Force, so that's pretty significant, and Luke was his son, which I think is pretty significant. And with Rey, I was hoping that would be, she would continue that as being the main hero of this new trilogy in the Skywalker saga. But like I said, I'm coming around to, the idea of her still being chosen by the Force. It's just, she wasn't a Force birth like Anakin, but the Force did choose her to be, bring about the light side of the Force during this era. And there's something special about that and she's even displaying, greater Force use and power than most normal Force sensitive people would in a vein to Anakin and Luke. And I can get behind the idea as long as it's, all through the workings of the Force and it's singling out Rey over any other Force sensitive child at that time. I think that does, make her special and significant in her own way because of her, different upbringing. So that's why I'm kind of coming around to the idea of her being a nobody, but yet still being involved with Luke and, part of the Skywalker and her relationship with Kylo Ren, involved with that family, is making her story being part of the main saga films working better for me initially when I thought, that was kind of more of a negative I had when I first saw it. So definitely more viewings on it and talking about it with people and just reflecting on certain things definitely helped with me coming around to the movie in general. So yeah, I could safely say which is, a relief to say. It's, how disappointed I was when we were talking about how I just didn't like that feeling of not feeling overly positive about the Star Wars movie.
So what was the big thing with Luke that made you come around to it?
So one of my big things was, the way in the flashback where he was going to kill Ben Solo, igniting that lightsaber, and how I said, oh, how can Luke do that after everything he went through with Vader and seeing the conflict with him? How can you not see that in Ben Solo? And just seeing it even on the second time, picking up more of the dialogue. I mean, I knew what they were trying to say in the first time, but I think I couldn't get past that fact of Luke doing that, where seeing it the second time, his dialogue really resonated me, where he said, it was just, this fleeting moment that went by so quick. And I love what he said immediately there when he goes, I felt immediate shame. And, all I saw was the face of a frightened boy whose master had failed him. So that, and the idea that it was only for a split second that Luke felt that way. And another thing that really helped me come to terms with it, that how I think it fits within Luke's character from the past, is talking to Kyle about it on the Saga Continues podcast. He brought up a great point, which I wish I would have realized because it would have made me feel better about it from the get-go. But Luke doing that is kind of similar to what he did in Return of the Jedi when Luke or Darth Vader was telling him about Leia, if you won't turn to the dark side, perhaps she will. And that just sets Luke off. I mean, going on and being so aggressive, ready to kill Darth Vader right there. And that was kind of that, impulse and that reaction he had in The Last Jedi. He sensed the darkness in Ben Solo and what he would do to the galaxy. And he was going to do what he had to protect the ones he loved. Just like in Return of the Jedi, he was going to do what he had to protect Leia in that instant. But he didn't kill Vader. He caught himself in time, shut off the lightsaber, and threw it away. And The Last Jedi, he did the same thing. He caught himself in time. He didn't go through with it. He felt shame, but, it just didn't work out where it was too late. Ben Solo saw him, and, that set off the course of destruction for, not only Ben Solo going to the dark side, but for the galaxy in general. So I just love that parallel it has with Luke, and where I think it does fit with the character, where, he does have those moments where he gives into his impulses or a little bit of, I guess the dark side for a moment there. So it all fits together with narrative wise with Luke as far as his history and what we've seen before. And I think it's a good reason for why he would exile himself on Octo, and realizing that, it would be the time for the Jedi to end, because he realized the folly of the Jedi that we saw in the prequels, and, the hubrisness and the, pride that they've had to allow Palpatine to rise to power. And then he thought he could be, better than that because he was a Skywalker, a legend, as he said, but he still fell too. So it all works together in how that would make him think, it was time for the Jedi to end, because like he said in the movie, their legacy is failure. And he continued that, sadly, but it all comes to a great culmination at the end where he comes back and, inspires the galaxy again. And, he is that spark that gives hope to the galaxy. And the future generation that's going to start with Rey. So this is story. It was really well done. Once, I was able to accept and come to realize how Luke's actions, wasn't, such a departure from the character as I initially thought, but really fits in to the character we see before. And this is why I love the story so much. So that was a big turnaround that I had seeing it again and then talking about it and, just seeing how it really was a good, a natural progression for Luke to go through in this part of his life.
You see, that's the thing too. I knew people would like it, and I knew you would like it if you just thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And people were, I think the problem was that people just saw it and then they didn't really interpret it. They just, oh, this isn't the future that I thought.
Yeah.
Or this isn't what I thought Luke would be.
And I'm guilty of that too. Yeah, it's hard because it is a shock when you see that. It really is. Right.
Yeah, but now, like, I'm so glad that time has passed, almost a month.
Yeah,
and people are thinking about it rather than just purely reacting to it. It's great to see. Yeah, and some people are coming around like you, and that's why I love that movie.
Yeah. And I agree. And like I said, it's seen it 4 times. I've enjoyed each time I've seen it, and now I just can't wait to get it on Blu-ray. How many times have you seen it?
Twice. Yeah, I saw it that once, and then I saw it again around Christmas New Year's with my dad. So, and he loved it. Yeah, he loved it. Yeah. He was like,
everyone I've seen it with, like different family members, loved it too. So I was the one who had the problem with it at first. But.
Yeah, and he was like, he couldn't believe that they would kill Luke off. And he was like, yeah, but I thought he was like the main guy, and it's like, no, they're trying to do something different, and he's not the main guy anymore. That's the thing you have to understand.
Yeah. But big time.
But yeah, he loved it, and I'm glad that you eventually came around and did all those podcasts, because it seems like it really helped you.
It definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah, understand what, or at least help you interpret what you saw. So
exactly.
So I'm glad.
But before we leave the subject of Star Wars, Dane, I got to ask you. I mean, this image I think you've become obsessed with, as you're going to see on our cover art and your new Twitter avatar picture.
Yeah, I just don't know what's going on in that photo. Okay, so let me just describe it for those that are listening on the podcast app or whatever. It is George Lucas and it is Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson is dressed as Qui-Gon, but it's off screen, so it's off the set. He is holding an umbrella with green sunglasses and like a bandana, and I just don't know what's going on and where that picture was taken, because it looks like they're standing in the desert, and I just don't. The photographer on set, right? Every movie has an on-set photographer, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least most of the big ones do. Why would you take that picture? I mean, and to Liam Neeson, why green sunglasses? And why a bandana? I mean, I know it's hot out there, but I don't know what's going on, Tim.
You just become so fascinated with it.
I know. I have to find that photographer and ask him what was going on. I mean, were they just standing around? Were they just talking? Were they waiting for the scene to get reset? Yeah, I just don't understand it. So yeah, I'm obsessed with it.
Here's my guess, because during the shoot for episode 1 in Tunisia, which obviously this photo is taken from, there was a big desert storm that happened while they were supposed to film it. Yeah, it destroyed a lot of the sets, a lot of the pod racers. And, the big thing that I think really stopped production of the movie, they lost, the fake beard that Liam Neeson had to wear as Qui-Gon Jinn for those scenes. So
wait. That's a story in itself. How did they lose the The beard. The
Yeah.
Qui-Gon beard.
It had to be sitting in a container or something, and maybe like in a tent ready for production the next day. And this overnight,
Right.
when all the sets got destroyed, it flew out. And if you watch the episode 1 documentary on the first DVD release titled The Beginning,
Yeah.
you hear, I mean, the whole section of it is, them dealing with the aftermath of that storm and getting production back going, building the sets. But you hear producer Rick McCallum on a walkie-talkie talking to someone from the production, asking, like, any word on Liam Neeson's beard or something like, do we have eyes on that? Something to that effect, where they're looking for pieces of Liam Neeson's beard he had to wear in the movie. So maybe this photo is when he finally got the beard back. They're ready to start production again. He's ready to film, and it's him and Lucas are just waiting for to start filming the scene now that he got his beard.
So let me get this straight. They lost the Liam Neeson Qui-Gon Jinn beard in the storm.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to make a new one?
I'm pretty sure they did. I got to remember if they actually found it. I think they found it, but I don't know if they used it again.
I mean, that thing must have been torn to pieces.
Yeah. Just imagine finding the pieces of Qui-Gon's beard being searched for by the team, by the production team, building sets, getting the pod racers fixed and everything. But then you had to probably a crew just searching for Liam Neeson's beard.
They had to lock arms and then go across the desert.
They were too cheap to make a new one. Yeah. So much money was going to the effects. They couldn't afford to have a new beard.
Well, so if you haven't seen this picture, go to the BatmanUniverse.net, click on over to the Bat-Fans section, and take a look at this cover art, because it is probably, I'd say, now Tim, I know there's been a lot of great pictures in the history of Star Wars, both on screen stills and behind the scenes photographs. I have to say, this is number one.
Oh, wow.
This is number one. And that's including this new trilogy, which I haven't seen any pictures. Nobody has seen any pictures of this new Episode 9 movie. So I include that too.
It's going to be impossible to beat for you. It's that iconic already.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite picture out of every single Star Wars image we've ever seen in any movie, in any TV show.
It only took you almost 20 years to find the picture and become fascinated by it.
Yeah, I just couldn't stop looking at it. It's probably the only photograph like it. I don't think
that's probably fair.
I don't think you'll see, I don't know, a Robert Downey Jr. in half of the, Iron Man suit with green sunglasses in the desert talking to George Lucas.
Yeah, and I would say Robert Downey Jr. would have much more expensive sunglasses than the one Liam Neeson's wearing.
Those sunglasses. I need those sunglasses. I'm not even going to wear them. I'm just going to have them.
Oh, just go to any, thrift store or supermarket and you can find them for probably really cheap.
But yeah, anyway, that aside, I'm so glad that you've come around to liking The Last Jedi.
Me too.
It was very, very weird that you didn't like a Star Wars movie, Tim.
Yeah, it was a feeling I did not enjoy having. Those 2 days where I went from seeing it once to twice. So those are 2 rough days.
Well, I am so glad, Tim. But now we can get on to our Dark Knight Rises minute by minute commentary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this is going to be from minute 96 to 97. And
you know what, Dane? Before we start, I should say, is it time to finally put Blu-ray as part of the Dead Media formats? Because I did get the Dark Knight trilogy on 4K.
And is there any difference?
Yes,
There is.
It looks awesome. I haven't watched all the movies in full yet, but I popped in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises to see a few scenes. I watched the opening of The Dark Knight, the bank robbery. I saw the car chase or the bat pod chase with the truck, and those were the two IMAX scenes. And I watched the fight with Bane and the ending fight with Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. All the IMAX stuff looks incredible in 4K.
Right,
It looks awesome.
And that was what I was going to ask you is could you see a difference in the IMAX scenes with the IMAX cameras? And
big time.
Really, like you can clearly tell that this is an IMAX camera.
Yeah. And even the normal film shots, like I watched the interrogation scene too, that looked good in 4K. But when you see the IMAX stuff, man, it takes your breath away. It looks so good. So
really,
yeah. The 4K movies, the ones I've gotten have been a little hit and miss. I mean, they all look good, but certain ones I've tried out, they didn't have quite the big leap I was hoping for in quality from Blu-ray to 4K. But certain movies like Guardian of the Galaxy Volume 2 and The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, those look incredible. So I guess more of the ones I think where they take, because Nolan really took his time in remastering these and the restoration process to make it into 4K. I think they were really made sure they got it right, and you can tell compared to other movies where it might just be an upscale or a quick upgrade to the 4K resolution. But these look amazing. So yeah, if you have a 4K TV and player, I highly recommend getting the Dark Knight trilogy. The only negative I will say, remember how the Dark Knight trilogy Ultimate Edition that came out on Blu-ray back in 2012 when the Dark Knight Rises, was it 12 or 13? Maybe it was 13.
13.
Okay. It had that documentary, The Fire Rises, about the making of it. And I was expecting that to be on the 4K trilogy box set, but it wasn't. I was like, that's kind of disappointing. So I was hoping to finally own that because I never did get that box set, but still it's not on there. So other than that, though, the picture quality is amazing. So yeah, we might have to put Blu-ray on our dead media formats now that The Dark Knight Rises is officially on 4K.
Are there any special features on the box set?
Pretty much all the ones that you already saw on the Blu-ray. Nothing really new.
Oh, I see. Hey, did you see Dunkirk?
I just saw that last week because we got that on 4K too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see it in the movie theater, but
me neither.
I just saw it, and it's a really good movie.
Yeah, I really like it.
Not a lot of dialogue either.
Nope, it was different. Especially, I wasn't. Maybe I should have because it's Nolan does this from time to time as far as the story taking place or the movie playing out in different time frames of the story and not being told in a linear fashion, kind of like Batman Begins. But it didn't make it so obvious at first, where you kind of thought everything was taking place at the same time. But the more as the movie went on, you realize, no, these things aren't matching up quite right. Things are taking place at a different time period.
Right.
And then I had to remember, well, they did say that when they showed each section of the movie, I believe it said in the first one at the beach, like I said, 1 week, and then at the family with the boat, it said one day or 1 hour. Then the fighter pilot said 1 day or 1 hour, one of those two. So that kind of gave it right there. Once I realized that, okay, this is taking place at different times. But then they all met up together at the finale of the movie.
Yeah, I totally missed that 1 week, 1 hour, 1 month thing. It wasn't until that family picked up Cillian Murphy on the ship.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I was like, wait. And then there's a scene where he's in a lifeboat. And I was like,
and it's night.
and it's nighttime. I didn't pick that up, but yeah, I really liked it. Not a lot of dialogue in it.
It really did a good job of making you, really get the sense of what it's like being, amongst, of course, you can never tell what it's like unless you're actually there fighting in the war. But I like the atmosphere it created where it didn't cut back to any scenes with like generals talking in an office room, telling their plans of what they should do to evacuate their soldiers like that. It just really kept everything in the point of view of the soldiers and the soldiers, the fighter pilots, and the family on the boat, the rescuers. And that was all the point of views you got, which worked. It really helped set the tone of what, it was like being in that situation for those soldiers and everyone involved on Dunkirk. So yeah, that was just, I thought a great, unique way to tell the story there.
Yeah, and Tom Hardy wearing something over his face in a Christopher Nolan movie again.
Yeah.
It's for most of the movie.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's not till like the end that you see his face, right? Or the
Yeah, you're right.
beginning, a little bit in the beginning, and then the end.
Yeah, when Chris Nolan needs someone whose face is going to be covered, Tom Hardy's the guy to call.
Yeah, and put on a weird accent too.
Yeah.
But anyway, this Christopher Nolan movie, The Dark Knight Rises, this is from minute 96 to 97. So grab your Blu-ray. Sad to say.
Yeah, that's time.
Grab your VHS copy. Grab your projector. Grab your HD DVD. Grab your laser disc. Grab your Blockbuster rental, and then your Netflix physical media subscription, and your GameFly movie subscription. Don't forget GameFly.
Do they have movies?
I thought they did. I think they sell movies. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they added that after I unsubscribed from my subscription, which is like 10 years ago, so it's possible.
Oh, you too. Like I must have tried it like twice. I must have rented like 2 games, and I was like, yeah, no. But speaking of video games, before we get to this Dark Knight Rises minute by minute commentary, I got an Xbox, Tim. I don't know if you know this, Tim.
Well, seeing your name on my Xbox friends list gave me a pretty good idea that you had one now, which I gotta say is awesome. So welcome to the Xbox Live family, Dane.
Yes, so I have both consoles. This is the first time I've owned an Xbox since the early days of the Xbox 360. It just came. It had just come out, and I bought the Xbox 360 before I bought my PlayStation 3. So, just a quick review. The controller is way, way better than it was on the 360. I especially like the are they called bumpers or are they called triggers?
Yeah. Well, the ones like on the very bottom of the triggers, the top ones are the bumpers.
Okay, so the triggers. I like how in some games, if you're going left or if you're going right, the triggers vibrate, but the other one doesn't. So, like, for example, in Forza, if you're over braking, the left trigger will rumble, and if you're burning out, your right trigger will rumble. So I really like that feature.
That's cool.
The buttons, not so much. I think they need to do something more with the buttons. They're a little too slippery, and they just feel cheap. You know?
Yeah, I know what you mean there. Sometimes I feel like if you play it a long time, that they're gonna pop off.
yeah, right. I actually like the joysticks more than on the Xbox controller than I do on the PlayStation controller. So I really like the joysticks on them. D-pad, not so much.
Yeah, that's the biggest flaw in every Microsoft controller is the D-pad is awful, unless you get the Elite controller. But
right. But overall, I love the new controller. I thought that the Xbox 360 one, especially when you load it up with batteries, was way too heavy and too bulky. But this one, they slimmed it down. They made it lighter. Which brings me to my next criticism is you gotta just put in the wireless controller rechargeable battery.
Yeah.
You cannot just... You can't have it where you have to buy a separate thing. You just have to have it where it's... it's like the PlayStation one where you can either do it wirelessly or you can connect it to the PlayStation. And that's how you charge it, and you can play at the same time. I actually have to just go out and buy a long USB cable and plug it in because, I don't want to keep on redoing the batteries,
Sure, yeah.
So,
I got a rechargeable battery pack right away when I got my
Yeah.
Xbox system. It's just so much more convenient.
but positives, I really, really like the user interface on the Xbox more than I like it on the PlayStation. The PlayStation is really, really basic. It gets real boring after a while, so you have to put up a wallpaper. but the Xbox UI is so much better with all the with the Windows, because it's based on Windows, right?
Mm.
With all the windows and like all the little like how you can go back and forth through the menu. I just like how smooth it flows. It flows better than the PlayStation UI. So yeah, that's the positive. Yeah, overall a really really good system. Um, the biggest letdown though, Tim, and I hate to say this to you,
I think I know what's coming.
is Battlefront.
Yep, I knew it.
Yeah. I just, it's so disappointing, especially that campaign. I am having a hard time getting through it. It's just, I, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the just sort of basic Call of Duty campaign where it's on rails and you can't really do anything. Yeah, that was just a huge letdown. The basic weapons, nothing really special there. I know if you play the online multiplayer, maybe it gets a little more complicated, a little more specialized. But
Yeah, you can modify it and all that stuff and upgrade
yeah,
them.
but in the campaign, it's such a letdown.
Yeah, the campaign I thought it wasn't great, but to me, it was good enough for me to enjoy it. The story I thought could have been better. I thought I wish. Well, how far are you into the campaign? Like, what map are you on?
I just finished the disappointing TIE fighter part.
Okay, what your Imperial TIE fighter still like? Do you care if I spoil it if you're not enjoying it?
Yeah, because I kind of want to just play it for the story. So
Okay, I won't say anything.
It's the first when you have to fight your way to the landing platform, and then you take off, and then the next stage is the you're kind of in space, and there's a bunch of like debris.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you're still pretty early on into it then. Okay.
Yeah, I'm having a really hard time getting through it. It's not made very well. If I have to complain about it, I'm sorry, Tim. I know this is like your game.
Well, to be honest, it's not my favorite game of the year. It's probably like my fifth favorite game of the year, so I'm not taking it too personally. But it's just multiplayer is definitely the most fun I've had with it. The single player, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it was nothing great or special. So
yeah,
I kind of know what you're saying there, but visually though, it looks amazing.
But on the positive side of games, Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, is really really good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
It's one of the best games I've played, I guess, last year, since this is a brand new year. It's such a great game. It's a way better story than the first one. More of a memorable villain, I'd say.
Okay,
and,
that's good.
Yeah, the whole thing is great, and I like the new Lara Croft. She's probably like one of the best heroes in video games right now.
Yeah.
One complaint.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Though. Yeah, sorry. One complaint. I don't really like how they. I don't know if they gave the actress. I forget her name, but I don't know if it's just the direction they gave her, but she kind of overdoes it with the heavy breathing while she's talking.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like let's say you ran, right? You ran over to somebody and then you started talking to them. She does that like way too much. I mean, there's one scene where she's literally looking at documents, and then somebody comes in and she's out of breath and she's trying to talk to them and she can't catch her breath, She sounds like an asthmatic person or somebody like that smoked a lot of cigarettes.
Wow. Well, no, I haven't played the game yet, but I would just imagine, with all the running and stuff that she has to go through, just from the first game, I I guess it would kind of make sense if she's so out of breath, the amount of situations she gets herself into. But again, I haven't played the second one yet.
I was about to say,
it doesn't apply.
Without spoiling it, she was in London in her dad's house.
Okay.
She wasn't out, adventuring. So, yeah, definitely made up for Battlefront. I just love Rise of the Tomb Raider, the first Tomb Raider, and hopefully they make another one. It's kind of weird how they did that exclusive, though. The Xbox exclusive, where they didn't release it for 3 months or whatever it was. And then after that, it went to PlayStation. But anyway, yeah, great game. So yeah, overall, I think the Xbox is right on par with the PlayStation. PlayStation has a few things that I don't like. Like I said, the menus, the menu screens, some of the bugs where it'll shut down your system. Just little stuff like that. And the Xbox has some stuff. A lot of crash issues, I'd say. I was playing Forza Horizon 3. That crashed on me like twice, and then when I was playing Tomb Raider, it crashed. So I don't know if it just has to work itself out or something. But I, had to turn off the system. So
yeah, it's happened a few times, but not so much where I think it's become a nuisance or a problem. It is rare for me when it does crash, but it does happen. So
yeah. So overall, it's right on par. You'll do well if you can only buy one. Either one. You just have to pick which exclusive you like better. Exclusive titles.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, which I think PlayStation has the better exclusives, but I don't know. You might think that Xbox does, but yeah, for me, PlayStation has better exclusives. But if you're not into that, you're not into the exclusives, then either one will do you good. So. Yeah, that's my review of Xbox.
Well, again, I'm glad you're part of the Xbox Live family again, Dane, and hopefully there will be a game where we can finally play together.
Yeah.
I was thinking Battlefront, but now don't know how much you're going to be playing that. So.
It's almost getting to the point where I'm thinking about uninstalling it. Because it's Yeah, it's not very good. But anyway, yeah, sorry. It's like a huge tangent, but let's do our Dark Knight Rises minute-by-minute commentary. So, Tim, are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, so minute 96 to 97. So, 3, 2, 1, play.
The Gotham City at sunset with smoke filling the sky.
Looks very polluty.
Yeah. And Gotham's always known for not looking the best as far as like when you compare it to cities like Metropolis. Then we get finally the Gordon and John Blake relationship really building here.
Yeah.
And I've as much as we only been doing it a minute, it is going by fast because we're getting to some pretty big stuff coming up. Between them, because just a few, I guess episodes ago, there were Gordon's in the hospital, so it's good to finally start getting scenes with him where he's out of the hospital and with John Blake.
Just wait till we get to the Bruce training montage. He's in the pit.
Yeah, it was a few times of him trying to make the jump. And here at Bane's big speech, which we're
not gonna make it through. No,
we're just gonna end with Selena Kyle in her jail cell watching him. So we'll definitely get into more of Bane's speech in our next one, which I got some stuff to say.
What I've always wondered, or maybe I just can't remember. Mm-hmm. When John Blake and Commissioner Gordon go to that apartment and they're talking, is that Blake's apartment? Or is that
Gordon's I assumed apartment? It was Blake's, yeah. Well, but it might be Gordon's because, his wife and family left him, so I don't know. I guess we'll have to speculate and dive into that once we get to that part. Maybe we can spot certain things
that because I was
lead
thinking,
us to believe whose apartment it is.
Yeah, I was thinking that Blake is just a regular beat cop, right?
Mm.
And I don't think he can afford an apartment that nice,
True.
So maybe it's Commissioner Gordon's.
Yeah. That's
Um,
like I said, I'll have to get a better look at it when we get there.
but anyway, our feature topic for this episode, Tim.
Yeah, so for our feature topic for this episode, we're in 2018 now, so that means we got to do our annual year in review of 2017, where we talk about some of our favorite comics, writers, artists, and just moments of DC and Batman, and also some of our disappointments of 2017 in regards to the comic writers, artists, and moments or events that happened. So, to kick off, as always, we start with our best comic writer of 2017, and if you were to ask me about when Rebirth was first starting, we got the first arc of Tom King's run. I probably wouldn't have thought I would be giving him the award for best comic writer of 2017 for me, but he's had a lot of great issues this year, and not all of them were perfect. I will say that there were still some issues I didn't quite enjoy, mainly in the wars of jokes and riddles, but he definitely had more great stuff than he has ever had in a year, I would say. You throw in I Am Bane storyline, which I thought was fantastic. You had Rooftops with Batman and Catwoman, and then throwing in their whole getting engaged, which at first I wasn't sure how that would play out, but with the issues we've gotten, the more recent ones, it's turned out to be a really smart move, in my opinion, because there's been some great scenarios and interactions with them and other characters that made for some really good reading. And then you just, throw in, like I said, some stuff in the Wars and Riddles that I really didn't like, but there was some also amazing stuff in that story arc, in particular his story of Kite Man and those Ballad of Kite Man issues. I mean, who would imagine that such, a D or even more below grade level character would have one of the most compelling stories of the year in comics as far as Batman villains would go. So he did an awesome job there with Kite Man. And then even the end of the Wars of Jokes and Riddles, that final confrontation with Batman, Joker, and Riddler was so good, and just a great conclusion to that story arc. Even though there were some bumps in the road, it all came together in the end for a really satisfying story. But the thing that sets Tom King at the top really for this year is the Button storyline and the moments we've got Batman and the Thomas Wayne version from Flashpoint, which I'll get into more later when I get to another category. But all those stories and moments in comics is what's what's going to make me give Tom King the best writer of 2017 award for our podcast. He really started to, I think, really become one of the best this year, while early on when Rebirth first started, there was a lot more stuff I didn't like than I did, but now it's becoming the opposite, where there's more stuff that I do enjoy from him than I do not. So Tom King, you get the best writer of 2017. And now for best comic artist of 2017, going to keep it in the Batman title family, where I'm going to give it to Jason Fabok for the art that he did, and not all of the Tom King's books, but the main one being the Button. The artwork on that really complemented this amazing story that was being told here. Some of the moments that we've gotten to Batcave with Thomas Wayne, Bruce, and Barry, and the action sequences they had in there, the emotional moments, it just really perfectly captured what, I think what made or helped with what made that story arc so good. And Jason Fabok's art really helped with that. And yeah, also doing the I Am Bane storyline with some great visuals with that as well. As far as, the action sequences between Bane and Batman, there was really some great moments that played out there. So yeah, I'm going to give the best artist of 2017 to Jason Fabok. And now for my best, or actually the best single issue of 2017. This is where I'm really going to get into the Button story arc. Batman number 22, the moment where Batman and Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne come face to face, and they have such incredible dialogue together. I mean, it was really special. There was some really great issues this year, like I said, or actually I haven't mentioned yet, but Batman and Elmer Fudd was another big surprise this year from Tom King, which, like I said, so many great different story arcs that helped make him my favorite writer of 2017. Batman Elmer Fudd was such a surprise, but such a well-told story. Just a great single issue story that we got. And then at the beginning of the year, I think one of our first episodes of 2017, where we reviewed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Batman number 4, I thought that was going to be, my favorite issue of the year. It was so good with Batman telling his origin to Raphael and really having those characters connect. I thought was brilliant in that issue. But the stuff we got in the Button with Thomas Wayne and Bruce Wayne, geez, it was just special to read as a Batman fan. Seeing Bruce get to interact with his father like that, and then just the words that Thomas Wayne was telling him about, to live your life, don't be obsessed with the death of your parents like I have been with the death of you in this universe, and just to live your life with your son, to just be happy. And that's what set off the events of Bruce realizing, taking those words to heart. I'm glad he did it. Just, if anyone's going to have an effect on Bruce and maybe not wanting to be Batman anymore, it would be words that came from his father. So it all made perfect sense, and which led into Bruce wanting to propose to Selena Kyle. So there's so much stuff that came from that story, The Button, but that issue of Batman number 22 being the meeting between Bruce and Thomas Wayne and the dialogue they had just made it really, really good and special. And I had to make that my, best single issue of 2017. So yeah, it was great. And hopefully it'll be hard to do, but hopefully there'll be more stuff in 2018 that can rival that moment, because it was pretty special. But then I guess we'll get into final bit of favorites of 2017, favorite overall Batman or DC moment. Favorite moment or experience, I should say, of 2017. And this one I'm going to cheat. I'm going to kind of give it to 2, but it's going to be on the movie front. Seeing Wonder Woman and seeing a Justice League movie were pretty special for me this year. I mean, we know the DCEU has had its problems, but those kind of all went away for a time period with Wonder Woman, and just how the divisiveness of Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, we had none of that with Wonder Woman. And it was really a DC movie that pretty much everyone responded to and enjoyed, and pretty much became a phenomenon of the year, which was amazing to have that for Wonder Woman's first movie, and deservedly so. It's a great movie. I mean, she got the treatment that she deserved for live action. I mean, Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, everyone involved did such a fantastic job with Wonder Woman. So getting to experience that this year was a highlight. And I might be in the minority with this, but I got to say the same for Justice League. I know I'm one of the ones who really, really enjoyed it, seeing it the first time. And I still maintain of loving the movie, because it's just total DC goodness for me, and geeking out with a lot of stuff. Yes, it has its problems, but to me, the stuff that I got on screen, I just enjoyed the heck out of it. Seeing all these heroes finally together in a movie. When they were together, they just nailed it. For the most parts, their interactions, it was just so great. Seeing the Justice League in live action in a movie for the first time was, for the most part, what I wanted to be. Sure, I could set it on a review some stuff where I wish they could have had in the Justice League movie, but what I got, I'm going to take, and I just had a great time watching it for the first time. It was just such a cool experience as a DC fan to finally get that. So those are my favorite overall moments of the year. But as always, with favorites comes disappointments. So for some of my disappointments of 2017, for disappointing writer, this was hard to do, because I almost wanted to take this out, because I kind of felt bad having it, because there wasn't really anything really, really bad that I thought, oh, this is easily the worst. But if I'm going to go with disappointing, and this might surprise you, Dane, but I think I'm going to give it to Scott Snyder this year, which I never thought I would do, but Scott Snyder, I hold on such a high level as far as a writer for doing such great stories. And 2017, he had great issues and stories in All-Star Batman, like the first Ally. I loved that. But the arc that came before that, it was, okay, it was not great. But the main thing that I'm going to have Scott Snyder as my disappointment of 2017 is because of Dark Knight's Metal. I just haven't really been enjoying it like I was hoping I would. And I'll kind of get into more to that later, but it's just too much going on in there. And I just felt it's not hitting the right beats and notes that I was hoping it would, and like normal Scott Snyder stories usually do for me. So, while it's not horrible, some of his stuff was a little more disappointing, and which was surprising. So I'm going to have to give, unfortunately, that title to Scott Snyder for Disappointing Writer 2017. Now, most disappointing artist of 2017, this one was a little easier, because this one's going to go to Marcio Takara, which hopefully I'm pronouncing the name right, but it was the artist for the Detective Comics story arc of League of Shadows. And that wasn't one of my favorite arcs in general, but There was one issue of it where it was just really, really bad. I think it was in 954, where it's just the artwork, the character models and the faces just did not look right. And so that was something that stuck out to me for the year, where out of all the issues I read, it just, was the one that didn't look the greatest. So I'm sorry, Mr. Takara, but the honor of worst, or again, I don't want to say worst, most disappointing artist of 2017. And then most disappointing issue of 2017 for me, again, going back to Detective Comics, is that issue of 954. Not only the art, but the story arc. That was probably the one out of the whole year where I just didn't like. It was mainly for different directions they took. In particular, this issue, this is where we get revealed where Bruce always thought that, we got the League of Shadows, they were different from the League of Assassins. He thought they were a myth and all that. And that's because Raish wiped Bruce's mind to have him forget some of the encounters he had. And to me, that just sounded like a retread of certain other stories we've had with Batman losing his memory. I mean, Identity Crisis comes to mind first. And it's just, a trope I felt was unnecessary there to kind of create this group to be more of a threat and more of a mystery, which didn't work for me. So the only good thing about that League of Shadows arc was the development of Cassandra Cain and, her coming to terms with her mother being Lady Shiva and how evil she is. So that was good. But the rest of the stuff, with Raish and Bruce, it just, didn't really work for me. So that was my disappointing issue of 2017. But then the biggest disappointment in 2017 in regards to DC or a Batman experience, that's going to go to the Batman and Harley Quinn animated movie. And I'm sorry, Jordan, I know you really liked it. You probably don't want to hear me saying that again, but I just had really high hopes for that movie going into it because it was almost going to be like a DC or a Batman animated series episode turned into a movie. You got Kevin Conroy and Lauren Lester back as Batman and Nightwing again, which they haven't done since the new Batman Adventures, and that alone had me super excited. But then you had the animation style looking like the new Batman Adventures. But then the movie turned into just too slapstick. The humor just really went over the top in certain areas that really, really brought the movie down. It could have been a cool team up with Batman, Nightwing, and Harley that definitely had their moments. I'm going to give it that. But the majority of it, the humor they tried to pull off for this film was just, it did not work for me. So sad to say that was my biggest disappointment in 2017. So yeah, those are my picks. And Dane, I know you haven't been able to read too many comics this year, but was there any in particular that you wanted to mention that, even if it wasn't this year, but just a story you read that you really liked or one that you didn't like?
Yeah, so probably Dark Knight. It took me a while to get around to it, but it is such a great story. I like how Paul Dini kind of goes. He's like pitching a story. It's kind of how he makes it, and he's going through like his story about how he got mugged and how it sort of it hurt him, and it was really, really refreshing to see. Not only just a comic, but a graphic novel do something like this, where it's not all about something crazy. It's about just the guy and what he went through. It's really simple, and I just love it. I don't know why it took me so long to read it. Like, what, 2 years is it?
Almost, but hey, I'm glad you did. It was a fantastic story. So yeah. I think when we were doing our year in review for 2016, I put that up as one of the best stories of that year, and I'm trying to remember what did I pick for my number one story, but I know it was definitely up there because it was one of the best. So even though it took a little while, I'm just glad you read it because it was a cool story to experience.
Yeah,
well,
and
I should say cool and an important story, because what Paul Dini went through in that story was really awful, and it's the effect it had on him psychologically. Yeah. I mean, you really felt for him for what he had to go through and how he came out of it. So again, it was great to read as fans of Batman and Paul Dini in the animated series, but something that a story was important to tell for Paul Dini too, and I gave him props for being able to put that down into words into an enjoyable comic book. So yeah, definitely got to give him props for that.
Yeah, I didn't know like all that sort of happened around the time they were writing. I almost said Phantom Menace.
A little bit before that.
Mask of the Phantasm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was like you're on such a high. You're writing a movie, and then something like this happens to you. Or even when he won, was it a Emmy?
Yeah. Mhm.
And he was feeling depressed because there was nothing really in his life. He was chasing after a woman that he realistically never could be with, and that he didn't really have anybody, and just sort of the you can be on such a high but then be so low. You could be winning an Emmy or you could be writing a movie, but you're sort of going through this kind of depression. It's a really great balance. It's so refreshing to see in a Batman book, or a book that is kind of about Batman but is mostly about Paul Dini.
Yeah.
A favorite overall Batman or DC moment has to be Wonder Woman. It was such a great movie, and what I thought would be the refresh on the DC movie universe, but ended up just being a flash in the pan. It seems so far. Far, I'll say so far. Not sure how it's going to turn out, but it seems that way. So, yeah. As for disappointing DC moments, it's going to have to be. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm sorry, Jordan. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you like this, but it has to be Justice League.
I knew we were going to be on opposite sides there, Dane. I knew it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious if you've listened to this podcast before. Big disappointment. I thought they'd learned their lesson. Reviews came out, and it was like, okay, they haven't. Yeah, and it's not only the movie; it's also the fact that they restructured the entire DC film side of Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They needed this movie to come out and not do big money, and they had to restructure the whole DC films. It's kind of bad, and now sort of like the Justice League. I mean the Green Lantern movies, the Flash movies. I know they already finished with the Aquaman movie. The Batman movie. What's going on with that? I know there's a new director, but is Ben Affleck going to be Batman? Not from what I saw in Justice League. It seems like he doesn't even want to be Batman anymore, play Batman anymore. So it's sort of like all of that combined into Justice League, and it's like it's not a good movie. I mean, it's not a good movie. It's not written well. The CGI doesn't look good. Ben Affleck is kind of just, I have to do this movie, so I'm just gonna have to do it, Only bright spot was Wonder Woman in that movie, so I hate to say it, Tim, because I know it's gonna break your heart. Biggest disappointment is Justice League.
Well, you do make a good point, Dane, I will agree as far as one of the bigger disappointments as well this year is, while I enjoyed Justice League, the fallout of Justice League and all the stuff you alluded to with Warner Brothers and all that was a major disappointment as well. So glad you brought that up, because that was definitely something we didn't want to happen, and yet it did. So I would definitely chalk that up to a disappointment of 2017, no doubt about it. But before we wrap up, got a couple of responses from Twitter when I put the word out for some of our listeners' favorite moments. So first up, from our good buddy Rob Myers at Everybody Loves the Drake podcast. One of his favorite comic moments was from the third part of A Lonely Place of Dying, where Tim is finally reunited with Bruce, and they see each other for the first time after believing he was dead, and just Bruce apologizing. It's a great panel where Bruce says, "I'm sorry, I can't he just goes to save your strength," like this embracing Tim. This is after feeling so guilty about allowing him to die, and I agree, Rob. That was a great moment. So, and also we got a response from Chris S at ChrisStrand73 on Twitter. And this was another great moment from Batman. And I loved it when I read the issue and when I reviewed it on our show from the I Am Bane storyline, where Bane says to the effect that he's going to kill Batman or break him. And Batman's response is so good. He's beat up, bleeding on the ground. And he goes, "You know how many times I've heard that. Rest in peace, Batman. There's no escape, Batman. Time to die, Batman." And he goes, "Every night, over and over for so many years. This is the end, Batman. Every night, and yet I'm still here." And that's when he gets up, ready to fight Bane and take him down. That was a great. Oh, if it was a movie, it'd be a cheer in your seat moment if you saw that play out for Batman. It was just really, really cool. So I definitely agree with you on that one, Chris. That was one of the better Batman moments of the year. So thank you guys for responding. And that's going to, I guess, wrap up our best of and disappointments of 2017. And hopefully it will be for 2018 another year where it's hard to pick the favorite moments, kind of how it was for me in this year with all the good comics we've got, and tough to pick disappointments as well, because that's always a good thing, which means, there's more great stuff out there than disappointments. So we'll see what 28 has in store for us. But overall, I thought 2017 was a great year for Batman and DC.
Yeah, I guess.
In your case, Dane, minus Justice League.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess just keeping things on the movie front. The Walter Hamada has been named president of DC Films at Warner Brothers. I guess he's known for The Conjuring and the It movie, which was really good, by the way. Surprised me. Didn't think that It was going to be that good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, there's some little CGI moments. I guess it's fast running. I don't know what it looks like.
Okay. I did see one
yeah.
thing like that. I think you might be referring to in the commercials where Pennywise comes out of the water and he's moving really fast.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, and there's a couple scenes where it's clearly green screen and he's supposed to be jumping towards somebody, and it's that doesn't look good. But overall, it's a really good movie. It surprised me because I did not think that this movie was going to be good. Just going off of the trailers and stuff, I didn't think it was going to be good. But finally saw it. It's fine. It's great. The water is fine.
Yeah, so this news, again, you heard my rant on our last episode about the restructuring they were going to do. So this one, I'm glad they got somebody to take over. It was someone I wouldn't expect, with Walter Hamada, as far as, being kind of more in the horror genre, to move over to the superhero side of things. But as long as they have a voice in there that's going to oversee everything, I'm glad about. But at the same time, I still wish, with Jeff Johns running the show, and they even said in this press release he's going to work closely with Jeff Johns. So I'm glad he's still going to be involved, even though probably not at the capacity as he was before. But still, I always think it's a good thing when you just have someone who's at the top, who's overseeing everything and doesn't have his attention divided to other projects that don't have to do with, the superhero and comic book genre. So glad they got someone in place, and someone who's had success with, the genre he was in before, with The Conjuring and horror stuff. And I'm not a horror guy, so I haven't seen any of those movies. But like I said, they've proven to be successful, and just hopefully he can bring that to the DC movies, because they really need it moving forward.
Yeah. You see, I wasn't originally going to bring this up, Tim, but the DC films at Warner Brothers, it reminds me a lot of something that you don't know anything about. Maybe Mark does, if he's listening to this. It reminds me a lot of U.S. soccer.
Okay.
So, if you've paid attention to the sporting news, I guess, in the last year, I guess, right? The U.S. men's national team didn't qualify for the World Cup. They had a
Okay.
90% chance of qualifying for the World Cup, but they didn't. And they lost to Trinidad and Tobago. All they had to do was win. They didn't even have to win. All they had to do was get a draw at Trinidad and Tobago, who had lost their last 7 games and were at the bottom of the table, right?
Uh,
They just had to get a draw and hope somebody lost. I think it was Mexico and Panama. Was it Mexico? No, I don't think. I can't remember the other team, but I think Panama had to lose. They just had to get a draw, and they couldn't even do that. And after the game, everybody from U.S. Soccer was like, there doesn't need to be any changes. We got the system. We got the system. We know what we're doing. It we know how to win this. It's like, okay, you don't need restructuring, but why didn't you qualify for the World Cup? You had a 90% chance. I'm sorry, Tim, this makes me angry, right? More angry than what's going on in DC films, but it's a great comparison, trust me. But you had a 90% chance of winning, and all you had to do was draw. All you had to do was draw. And you want to say that you know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry, you just don't. You need help. You have to get help with this. It's not working. You can't even qualify for the World Cup, even though it's a 90% chance. It's almost guaranteed, Tim. That's almost guaranteed that you will make the World Cup. And you cannot tell me that it's a money thing, because we put so much money into U.S. soccer, more than most countries in the world. You can't tell me that it's money, it's players, it's this or that. It's not that. It's the fact that you don't know what you're doing. You need help. You need European help. We put so much money into U.S. soccer, and what did we do? We built training facilities for these players. And then you look at a country like Germany, who didn't qualify, which was a real big embarrassment back in, I think it was like 2000, around that area. And what did they do? They didn't put money into the organization. They didn't put money into the training facilities. What they did was they built soccer pitches, and they built youth academies, and they invested in educating their coaches. So what does that tell you? The players don't need high quality training facilities. They need to be playing with each other since they were kids. We need youth development. And those kids, those German kids that were part of that program back in the early 2000s, what did they do in 2014? What did those kids do? Because the DFB, the German league, they invested in those kids, and they invested in those kids' coaches. They won the World Cup in 2014. Okay, so if this isn't my comparison, I heard it someplace, but if Iceland, who has the population of Anaheim, California, can qualify for the World Cup, what does that say about our system? So
mm-hmm.
You need outside help. We need our players to go to our kids, our kids in our youth systems, to go to European academies and learn there, because we don't have the youth academies that they do. And so I guess what I'm trying to saying by going on this long rant about U.S. soccer and the U.S. men's national team is the fact that DC Films needs outside help.
So
Right?
you think instead of looking within, they should looking without maybe poach some people from Marvel.
Yeah, get somebody from
Something like
Marvel.
that.
Get somebody from Marvel that knows what they're doing, knows how to run, a big franchise like this. Instead of saying, "Oh, we know what we're doing. We know what we're doing." Get somebody's help.
Which hopefully they're realizing now that they're not saying we know what we're doing. Hopefully the flop of Justice League and its box office numbers prove that, they do need help. And, hopefully the hiring of Walter Hamada is going to be that. But I kind of know what you're saying about outside help too, which, kind of moving out of the comfort zone and stuff that didn't work. So I get what you're saying in that comparison as well.
And it's not only that, it's also the fact that you have Batman, you have Superman, and you have Wonder Woman. You have these iconic characters. If you put out a movie, it's almost an automatic success that this movie is going to be great. But then you can't. But then you put out a movie and it's not that. It's the same.
You can't rely on their names and just their names.
It's the same thing with U.S. soccer. What's going on in U.S. soccer? And earlier last year, the women's national team, they were saying that they should be paid more. We should be paid more than the men's national team, but we should be paid more than what we're making right now. And it's abundantly clear that they should. Because why? They won the World Cup. So they're doing something right, so they should be paid more. But I'm sorry, I just had to get that out.
Yeah. No, yeah, I got the comparison you were making, even though I pretty much know nothing about soccer. But I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm done ranting. Let's just move on to our next.
It's good to let it out, though, Dane.
Our first images and voice cast announced for Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay.
Yeah, so this is the next DC animated movie coming this year after Batman Gotham by Gaslight, which will be out in a few weeks, and I can't wait for. But I was curious to what Suicide Squad Hell to Play or Hell to Pay. No, yeah, it's Hell to Pay. I first think it was Hell to Play, but yes, what it was going to be about. And it sounds like a typical Suicide Squad story. Is they're like looking for this mystical object, but they're going to be running into a bunch of other DC villains. They're going to be going up against kind of like a race to see who can get it first, which could be fun. But I don't know. I kind of wish they would have stepped away from the whole mystical aspect of it after that being such a disappointing plot line in the Suicide Squad movie. But hey, what are you going to do? Hopefully, if it's fun and entertaining, that would be good. But the voice cast, I guess the big name is going to be playing, or in this movie is going to be Christian Slater playing Deadshot, which should be interesting. But I could see him in the voice that he has pulling off a good Deadshot. And then I guess one that I'm excited about is C. Thomas Howell reprising his role as Zoom. He played Zoom in Justice League with Flashpoint Paradox, and I thought his voice was perfect for Zoom and Eobarthon. So I'm looking forward to having him play that character again. Hopefully it's a big role too, because I loved his portrayal. Yeah, they just had a few images, one images of the team. You got Harley, Deadshot, and Killer Frost, and Bronze Tiger is going to be part of the group, Captain Boomerang. And, they look a little bit different, but kind of standard too. Harley Quinn, again, has a different type of outfit, but still invoking the Harley Quinn clown feel to it. So it all works. And then she's being voiced by Tara Strong again, who has been voicing her for years now. So gotta wait for a trailer to see, I guess, get a better feel for it, but still good to get this info out and having a better idea what it's going to be, because we were kind of wondering just based on the title, what this type of Suicide Squad movie is going to be. But now that we got that information out of the way for Suicide Squad, I can't wait to get the unveiling of The Death of Superman. That's my most anticipated DC animated movie this year. And just, how much they're going to capture the look of the comic and it being split into two parts, like the Dark Knight Returns animated movie. I'm just super excited. So we got the unveiling of this year's two movies of Gotham by Gaslight and Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, but just bring on The Death of Superman. That's what I can't wait for. So hopefully I won't have to wait too long to get the unveiling of that, because it's going to be exciting.
Oh, so you're excited for this movie, Tim?
You didn't get that feeling when I was just geeking out about that right now? Should I reiterate it?
I thought it was going to be like What was that movie that the Batman and Harley Quinn one?
Yeah, no, not my most disappointment of 2017. I don't think the Death of Superman is going to be that. Well, if
Okay.
it is, it's yeah. I guess if I really don't like it, it would be the biggest disappointment of 2018 because how excited I am for that movie. Yeah, it would be a major disappointment if I do not like it.
Let me see if I can compare this piece of news to U.S. soccer.
I'm sure there's
um,
ways if you really wanted to.
I am hopeful for the future, just like you are hopeful for this movie, Tim.
There you go. Well, I'll take that.
Yeah. Okay. Um, right. So I guess we can move on to our conversation with Alex slash listener feedback. And do we have an email from Jordan?
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do.
We got one. Yeah, we got him an email from Jordan kind of towards the end of 2017. So
Oh, okay.
um, I'll go ahead and read that. It says, "Hey, Tim and Dane and Alex," and he starts off by replying to what we talked about in our last episode about Warner Brothers reshuffling and all that stuff. He goes, "To me, that Variety exclusive doesn't really seem like big news. It speculates on several things, but the only two things it really establishes definitely are, number one, John Berg is getting a promotion to his dream job, and two, some of the people working on DC films are getting shiny new offices the next building over. That's all it really confirms. It says Jeff Johns' role in DC films may evolve, but technically could mean he could wind up having a bigger role. In any case, a change to his role isn't certain yet. The DC animated film trailers just keep rolling out. Speaking of, there's a reason why I don't feel we can refer to the DCU AOM films as simply DC animated movies. That's because DC animated movies would technically also encompass a bunch of other DC animated films, such as the Lego one that I'm about to talk about. We got our first trailer for Lego DC Superheroes The Flash. It's funny because we were originally expecting to be getting a live action Flash movie in early 2018, but instead we're getting an animated Flash film. To me, though, the trailer looks just okay. It starts out with Batman giving Ace a belly rub and making a voice that I never want to hear Batman make ever again, except I'm going to have to hear it again when I watch the movie, lol. That wasn't a good start. However, it does get better. The story seems pretty cool, with Reverse Flash traveling back in time to take away Flash's connection to the Speed Force and make him relive the same day over and over again. I wasn't impressed with the voice performance for Reverse Flash, though. He's rolling all his R's, and that seems like a really weird choice to me. It makes him less menacing. I will mention one more highlight of the movie, which is where Firestorm gets his shampoo switched out with a fire extinguisher. That was pretty funny. I'm looking forward to this film, but not quite as much as I wish I were. Yeah, I haven't seen the trailer for that yet. I know it's out there and I probably should, but now I really want to because I want to hear that noise Batman makes or that voice when he's really or rubbing the belly of Ace. Like that's such of a strong impact on you, Jordan. I got to hear it from myself to see if it really is something that I never want to hear again, like you. But he continues saying, "Tim, I totally agree with the Deathstroke two-parter has been the highlight of Arrow season 6 so far. Well, other than maybe Crisis on Earth X, that is. Believe it or not, I haven't been very high on season 6 as a whole either, though. I think the problem for me might be that season 5 was so incredible that season 6 just isn't living up to it. Spoilers, there's not enough suspense or mystery. I'm not waiting with bated breath for each episode like I was last season. Last season, the mystery of who Prometheus was kept me so excited for each new episode through the first half of the season, and then in the second half of the season, I couldn't wait to see what he'd do next and to see more of Josh Segarra's unbelievable acting performance in the role. This season just didn't have any direction up until the end of the mid-season finale, but even then, that end reveal didn't have me all excited. My guess is that they're giving us an Arrow Legion of Doom, knowing that the only way they can possibly come up with a big bad that can live up to Prometheus is to not give us just one big bad, but a team of them. That's cool, but I still don't think they can match Prometheus. Look at last season's mid-season finale. It was one of the best Arrow episodes ever. It featured that incredible scene where Green Arrow went through the building atop which he had killed Justin Claiborne, and Prometheus laid out bodies replicating all the people that the Hood killed. It ended with Green Arrow killing Billy Malone, and then an end stinger with Laurel and the bunker. Like, I remember last year how torturous the winter hiatus was waiting to find out who Prometheus was, what the fallout of Green Arrow killing Billy would be, and how on earth Laurel was in the bunker. I just didn't feel that way this year, unfortunately.
Hey Tim, can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
Okay, so this is an Arrow question. We've been over this 10,000 times.
Uh,
So Laurel isn't on Arrow anymore.
no, not the one from the first 4 seasons. She's dead.
But they have a new Black Canary.
They have a new Black Canary, yes. Her name's Dinah Drake. But they have Laurel from Earth 2, I believe, is the Earth where she's bad. And she's a bad guy now this season. And her title is Black Siren, not Black Canary. So there is a Laurel, but it's an evil Laurel from Earth 2.
Okay, so...
But we do have a different Black Canary, like you said, who is Dinah Drake.
So the actress that played Laurel plays this Laurel that's the Earth 2 Laurel that's evil.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is that is so confusing, Tim.
I will just say all this Black Canary stuff was so unnecessary. And I've said it before. I think they messed up the whole storyline and character of Black Canary with all the getting different versions out there. So I won't retread those waters again. But
so why did they go to Earth 2?
that had to deal with the Flash because the main villain in season 2 was Zoom from Earth 2, and then Barry, Cisco, and other members of Team Flash went over there, and Zoom brought Black Siren over from Earth 2 during that season of the Flash. So, and then she just kind of had recurring appearances, and now is a regular character this season. So that's her explanation. But Jordan, I agreed with every single word you said there about Arrow season 6. You nailed it, especially how great season 5 has been, and season 6 just not living up to that, especially when it comes to the villains. And I totally agree with what you said, how it seems like to match Prometheus, the only way to do that is to bring a bunch of lesser villains together, which, you know, we've seen before in the CW universe. Just last season on Legends of Tomorrow, where they had their Legion of Doom. So, just not quite living up to what made season 5 so great. But hopefully it gets better in the second half. We'll see.
Okay, so just so we're clear on this, there is a new Black Canary, not played by the original Laurel actress.
Correct.
She's not Laurel Lance.
Correct.
She is Dinah Drake.
Correct.
The actress that plays Laurel, Earth 2 Laurel.
Correct.
And finally, Oliver is still with Felicity.
Unfortunately, correct. Okay. In fact, they're married now.
They're married? They got married?
Yes. Don't get me started on that.
Well,
they pretty much
why?
They butted into Barry and Iris's wedding, and they decided to get married too, which was so dumb.
Why? I mean, like, what was the context of it?
It was after the whole crossover with the Crisis on Earth X, crossover they do with every series this year, and the whole theme of it was they were attending Barry and Iris's wedding, but they got invaded by Earth X, their doppelgangers. They had to take them down, so Barry and Iris just wanted to hurry up and officially get married, and they had a small ceremony where Diggle married them, and Felicity and Oliver were presents as, I guess, the maid of honor and best man. And throughout that story, Oliver, seeing Barry and Iris so happy getting married, he thought, maybe this is time for him and Felicity to get married. But Felicity didn't want to get married. She didn't want to ruin what they had. Yeah. But the experiences they had with this crossover made her realize, they better do it. And so while Diggle was marrying Barry and Iris in their ceremony, Felicity just stupidly says, I want to get married too. Let's do it right now, blah, blah, blah. So they, shoehorned in on Iris and Barry's big moment. So it was so dumb.
So is it like a thing where, what is it called? Like, is it a thing where it's like, okay, now we're married, we're happy, but then there's some undercurrents, like we're not happy, and then we're going to break up, and we're going to divorce, and
I'm sure that'll happen eventually because we can't have a CW show without relationship drama. So
yeah, it's like I mean, especially Smallville, where it's like for that entire 10 seasons, 10 years of that show, it was pretty much just Clark looking at Lana from afar. Yeah.
Well, he did move out of Smallville in the later half, so he wasn't exactly in the bar the whole time.
Yeah, but still, like the Lana thing was still there, right?
For the most part, until he moved on to Lois.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Which was like the last 3 or 4 seasons, I will say, when they started their relationship.
And was he still thinking about like, oh, I remember when Lana and I used to...
I don't think so. Not too much, if memory serves me right.
So how did she? No, I don't mean to keep sidetracking us with just random tangents and about the CW and stuff, but I have seen the pilot of Smallville, and Lana had the kryptonite necklace, right? And that's why Clark couldn't go around her, or he felt sick around her.
Mm-hmm.
How did she take it off or something after that, or
no? Something happened. I think we even talked about this in one of Jordan's emails about what exactly happened to that. But yeah, so even right now, I'm having trouble remembering what happened to that.
Well, I mean, don't even try to remember.
They did explain it, though. I know there is a reason for it. So not to look back at Jordan's emails when he explained it to us.
Yeah, but that's kind of weird. Like, you have your two main love interests, and like they can't go near each other. So like they couldn't go near each other throughout that show until she took it off.
Yeah, well, and she did wear a lot, but obviously it wasn't all the time, or else, like you said, they'd be apart for most of the series. So I'm sure they had stories, explanations for that. I just can't remember.
Okay, all right. So this is gonna be a really big tangent, Tim.
You sure we got time?
But I wanted to bring Mark on.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. He's on.
He's on right now, and I just wanted to. He wanted to defend DC films because I told him I compared the DC films to U.S. Soccer, and he wanted to defend DC films.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I don't know if do you have his Skype?
Yeah, let me try bringing him on here right here. See if he joins in. Yeah, because I saw he just got in on Skype, so...
Yeah.
He must be really ancient. Mark!
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing very well. I'm just sitting here and holding a baby.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so...
I got the...
go ahead.
No, I'm ready, my man. I'm ready.
Okay. So, earlier in the podcast, I compared U.S. Soccer to DC films, saying that they're one and the same, where they need outside help. They can't keep on saying, oh, we know what we're doing, and then you don't qualify for the World Cup, and then you release Justice League, and then you have to restructure, just like how DC Films is restructuring their corporate offices or whatever, right? So how are you going to defend that?
You know what, Dane? I have to kind of agree with you now.
Really?
After you explained yourself. So
okay.
I agree. Yeah, I know that the DC office, DC studios are bringing in the people from that did like The Conjuring and one of those other movies, like The Conjuring verse that James Wan's done. I think that's a really good move to bring in someone who keeps pumping out quality movies, low budget movies that people like and whatnot. And, U.S. men's national team definitely needs to get new blood. Christian Pasulich was, just interviewed and said that the men's youth system is horrible. That if you want a chance, you got to go to Europe. So we got to keep our movies in America.
Right. So you actually agree with me that that U.S. soccer is like DC films, where they need outside help. They can't just be doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and then you don't qualify for the World Cup, and then you don't release a good movie that makes billions of dollars, right? Because I think that's what they expected. They expected to at least get close to the $1 billion mark, right? Like maybe 800,000.
Yeah, I think they were hoping for BVS style money.
Right.
And the movie was Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman. I think it's safe to say they expecting $1 billion and it probably should have made $1 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, how much money do you think was added to the budget with the Joss Whedon reshoots, you know?
Exactly.
It's just fattening up the bill, you know, you just keep adding on dessert after dinner, and before you know it, your bill's out of control.
Yeah. And that's a great way to put it. I mean, was there a restructuring because of the fact that they had to go back and reshoot and add more money onto this, or was it just because it didn't even near the $1 billion mark?
Well, this is what I think really happened, and this is what some of the news kind of stated, was that people did not like BVS, and the people in charge at Warner Brothers kept moving forward with Zack Snyder. And the Zack Snyder army bizarro world that exists on Twitter does not represent most of movie-going people. And I think when they saw what he was doing with Justice League, they were just, this is horrible. This is unwatchable. What did we do? I think the people that were initially engaged with, that started the process for Justice League, were removed, and they brought in Joss Whedon and the other people to make a watchable movie, you know? And then when the done and dusted, you know, let Star Wars come out and start changing things up. And that's something that I read, was like, they saw the writing on the wall with BVS, and they stayed with it, you know?
Yeah,
it was like too late to stop the wheels were turning and all that stuff. They're already in motion, and it was like too late to stop it now type of thing, with still having Zack Snyder on board.
And the thing is, they could have stopped it after BVS, saying Zack Snyder has delivered 2 divisive DC movies with Man of Steel and BVS. People don't like it. Why would anybody get excited about Justice League? And Wonder Woman was contained enough. You know, my wife went and saw Wonder Woman, loved it, wanted to see Justice League because Wonder Woman was in it, and was like, what is this? Like, what did I just see? This is not congruent. So, you know, and she doesn't really care about superheroes, but, you know, she knows who Gal Gadot is now because of Wonder Woman and these self-contained movies. And, you know, kind of what Rick Shu says on Batman on Film, I think it is smart to kind of keep these movies a little more self-contained going forward, because that's, you know, I think Aquaman is going to work because the guy in charge of it, James Wan, he hasn't made a bad movie yet. And it seems like they're leaving him alone. And I think we're not going to really know anything else until Aquaman comes out, and they brought in the Conjuring people, you know, like the next Conjuring movie that comes out is The Nun, and that's going to be a self-contained movie. So I think that's what we're going to see going forward.
Yeah, just as long as Aquaman doesn't, every single piece of dialogue out of his mouth doesn't end with a "yeah, let's go, let's do this," and, you know, woohoos, and you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a little bit more deep sea terror than what we got. And I think James Wan's going to be very James Wan-y, to make a really corny analogy, but yeah, no, I trust James Wan, and I think James Wan has enough clout to walk away from a movie that he didn't want to make.
Right.
If he was like, y'all need to get out of my way, and they didn't, he'd be like, all right, I got The Nun to go make. All right, you go find someone else to make Aquaman. I think they really let him make his Aquaman movie.
Yeah, that's
which is
true.
what they need to do going forward for all the directors for the movie. Just let them do their thing and be on the stage page from the get-go, and not later on.
And think about it. Warner Brothers, you know, they made a lot of money, but they made a lot of money off of Wonder Woman and It.
Yeah,
both movies made ridiculous amounts of money. It cost $35 million to make. That's it. That movie saved Warner. Didn't save. Warner Brothers had other money making properties, but, you know, it really, you know, they ran to the bank with It and Wonder Woman. So
it made them handle, I guess, didn't make the loss of what they had on Justice League like it's a little more bearable with the success that those two had, like you said.
A bad movie in Justice League made $600+ million worldwide. What was it, 700 now? Maybe, I don't know, but
yeah, I'm sure I forgot that high.
You know, if this was a Valiant or Dark Horse property, whatever studio made it be out of business.
Yeah. But with that said, I was texting with Tim, and I read somewhere that Justice League was a success, but I think compared to The Last Jedi, right? The Last Jedi had a smaller budget, but they made more money than Justice League did in like the same amount of in less time.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely less time.
yeah, in less time, and like I just don't understand that. You know, so like it has to be the quality of the movie, right? It has to be like your wife who saw Wonder Woman and then she saw Justice League, and then it's like, okay, what is this, and why is it not good? You know.
Absolutely, it's because they made a Frankenstein movie, you know, and it was cut up and it was not congruent, and the Batman saying, "Oh, I think something's bleeding." What is that garbage, you know?
Yeah, I actually laughed at that. I thought that was good.
I mean, I laughed at it too, but it was one of those moments that I'm being a little harsh right now. I'll tone it back. You know,
say how you feel, Mark.
I had a lot of smiles while I watched it, and then it was like, it wasn't like a fine wine. It didn't age well, you know. When I went home and when I thought about it, I'm like, do I even want to see this a second time? No, it's not worth my money. You know, I'll get ready for the next thing. And unfortunately, you know, with life changes, going to even see Star Wars, which I really want to see a second time. You know, I think that helps, but you know, I struggled with The Last Jedi initially, and the more I've listened to podcasts and thought about it, got better. But that's a sign of a movie that makes you think. Justice League was a movie that made you go, and well, you know, and I don't like saying it. You know, DC is my property. I don't get excited about Marvel stuff. I don't resonate with the characters. You'll never see me on Twitter or whatever in my life talking trash about it, because they're good movies. They have a vision and they know what they're doing, and I can respect that.
No, I mean, you're nailing it right there. Like you said, none of us want to be talking about the struggles of DC movies. And like I said all the time before too, as much as I enjoyed Justice League, there's no denying what a disappointment the box office and effects it had on the movies going forward is. And everything is kind of in flux right now. I mean, we're just getting a few movies coming, like we said, with Aquaman and Shazam just got a release date for 2019. So stuff is still happening. It's just a shame that they just can't stick to one, you know, set plan that they had from the get-go. Things always keep changing with, you know, the divisiveness and, you know, unsuccessful box office numbers for some of these movies that are coming out, which, you know, was a shame. And hopefully, if anything, Justice League will be it for that. Like we said, hopefully, we talked about earlier, they would learn from this and saying how not everything is not okay. We know what we're doing, but they're going to take this in stride and move forward to make sure they get this right. And I agree with what you said, Mark, about the hiring of the new producer in charge of DC Films, Walter Hamada. It seems like a good move to bring someone in who has a successful track record with the franchise, even though, you know, superhero genre could be totally different from the horror genre. Just that someone who's had success to be in charge of it, hopefully, and just a single voice guiding the direction moving forward should be what they need, instead of, you know, not being happy with the director and the studio and producers meddling in different projects. And all that just, you know, creates more of a mess. So hopefully this is, you know, I want it so bad to be the last time we're talking about the struggles of a DC movie. Hopefully Justice League was the culmination of that, and we could just move on to bigger and better things.
Absolutely, and I agree. And going back to Dane's U.S. men's national team thing, you know, they just need to bring a bunch of Germans in to run the U.S. men's national team. Go get Joachim Löw and some German banker dude to run it and restructure it and bring in new blood, out with the old and with the new. That's what needs to happen with the U.S. men's national team. And that's what needs to happen with DC, which is what they're doing. My wife loves the Conjuring movies. She loves them. She is more into that than I am into DC right now. I mean, she enjoys those movies. She likes Vera Farmiga and wants to see Vera Farmiga movies because of those. And I know the first Annabelle movie was bad, but look, they redeemed themselves and made a really good Annabelle creation movie that was scary as hell. And the new Nun movie looks like it's going to be fantastic as well. And maybe they can bring in Antonio Conte to run the U.S. men's national team and inject a little crazy into our lives.
I don't think that. Whatever is needed, I say at this point, because that was embarrassing. That was embarrassing.
Well, Mark, I got to say, I'm glad Dane texted you about that, and then you were able to jump on, because while I got his point of what he was trying to make with the comparison, I am not a soccer guy. Didn't, know too much of like the scenarios, what's going on in soccer, but I'm glad you're able to understand it better, that comparison.
Yeah, let's put it in baseball terms. We don't want to do any type of Derek Jeter. Yeah. You can let me break up a team and sell people and boss people around with money that's not even mine. So.
And give Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees. Which, I'm both excited
you're like
and
one of the
nervous
most
for.
genuinely nice people I've come across, and you, as a Yankees fan, deserve Stanton.
I appreciate that. I am excited for the first few years, but I'm already knowing those last few years of that big contract, it's going to be a struggle and A-Rod all over again, or they can't wait
absolutely.
for it to end.
Maybe he can go serve Cracker Jackson's stand.
Yeah, they'll release him again, but still pay him all that money, just like they did A-Rod in his final year.
Maybe he can have like a Cuban cigar store at the stadium and do customer relations. I'd fly to New York for that.
That's awesome. Well, we're in the middle of reading some listener emails, doing some comic book reviews, Mari. I don't know if you're busy and wanted to stay on with us or whatnot, or if you had to go, but if you're welcome to stay and continue on the show with us.
Right. Well, first off, I'd like to apologize, as the show is named after me on Twitter. And I have not been good at sending emails in, and it makes me sad sometimes when I see y'all's show pop up on my feed to listen to, and things are starting to settle down with the Twins, and I can get a little bit, like just now, I can pop up here in a minute, no problem. But yeah, man, just I probably got to head here in a couple minutes, but I get what you were saying about Metal 4. I don't know if you've already talked about that or not, but
just about to get into that, actually.
I mean, I had problems with it, but I'm going to trust Scott Snyder. What's up with these Snyders, right? Doing big and crazy divisive things.
Right.
But I love Scott Snyder, and I'm this Tom King, Batman, Catwoman stuff is phenomenal. The Double Date.
Yes.
What was it? 36 and 37.
Yeah.
Probably some of the best comics I've read in a long time. I love the dynamic. I love the Clayman art. It's a good time to be a Batman and DC comic fan for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then Doomsday Clock going on right now. I don't know if you've read those first two issues, but
yes, I have, and I'm all about it.
Yep. See, that's one of my. I'm going to get into this when we get into Dark Knight's Metal, where I think Doomsday Clock's kind of taking away the thunder of Dark Knight's Metal as an event going on, because it's just so much bigger, and I think just a better story being told right now when
you can follow it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't go back and give you a general synopsis of 1 through 4 Metal. I have no clue.
Yeah, that's a great
it's
point.
Dense. It needs to be read and trade. It's pretty to look at. I think it's a fantastic original concept, and I trust it will deliver fine. But you know what? That's a good problem to have. DC has 2 major events going on that are both high quality and that are not disrupting the continuity of the regular comics.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the critique of the New 52 flipped over right now. That's the antithesis of, what we were dealing with every September from the New 52.
Yeah.
Everything got bogged down, and let's do the Forever Evil, and let's do the future thingy that they did, and Future's End. Yeah. And we're still getting our good, it looks like things are a little delayed with Batman right now with Mikel Yannen's new arc, but I'm fine and with that, and Mr. Miracle's been phenomenal. So
yeah, on the comic front, things are extremely well for DC. You can definitely agree on that.
DC needs to up its game with the evil empire, Disney overtaking everybody. That's kind of how I feel about it, with them getting, I don't know how I feel about aliens being part of Disney. It's Disney's newest princess, I guess, but
yeah, the queen is going to be the new.
Yeah, the queen's the newest. Whatever comes out of that egg thing of hers, it's the new Disney princess, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I stole that. I saw that on Twitter. So I wish I was smart enough to come up with that, but that's that. I mean, I could go on for that. I mean, for hours, and I don't want to disrupt the flow of your show for tonight. So
no, well, it was appropriate that you came on this episode, Mark, because as you know, every year we have a new title for our episode for the year, and 2017 was Mark Tiberius Lemke, Chicago Blackhawks fans, and this was the last episode with that title. So it's fitting that you are here for the final one with that name. So
well, it's an honor. I miss you guys. I appreciate you guys. You're still ground zero for a podcast for me.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, man. You guys are some of my two favorite people, and maybe Luis Enrique will be coaching Chelsea next week. Who knows? But Dane, right. I don't know, Dane. I got thoughts. I sent a rant to the London is Blue podcast, so let's see if it gets on there.
Oh, well, what was the cliff notes of it?
What else does Antonio Conte have to do? He's coached Juve. He's coached the Italian national team. Now he's at Chelsea. Who else is going to want him as a hothead that can't stay somewhere for a couple of years? Maybe PSG. That's the only move I could see him make.
Nah, not PSG. Not. I don't think the way he plays.
Yeah. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe like a German.
Abu Dhabi's crazy to do it.
But. Maybe like a German team. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
right on, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Mark, and actually agreeing with me and my U.S. soccer thing.
I know, Dane, I see what you're doing, and there is a lot of value, and let's bring in the Germans.
Right, yeah. All right, Mark. Well, thank you for coming on, and we'll let you get back to your twins.
Right on. Yeah, if you need me in the future, it's a lot easier to get on now. They're 8 months now, and that's a lot easier to deal with than newborns. So,
yeah.
I can imagine.
We'll definitely have you on at some point. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks.
Y'all have a great night.
Great.
All right, Mark. Yeah. Take care.
Peace out.
Later.
Well,
yeah, that was a cool surprise, Dane.
Yeah. I just texted him, and he was like, "Oh, do you want me to come on?" And I was like, yeah, if you can defend the U.S. soccer, the DC Film franchise, but like, I didn't know he'd actually agree with me, so that's good.
It did make sense. Like I said, I didn't get all the references you're making with the U.S. soccer, but yeah, it was better with Mark having it to make the scenario apply even better. So, I guess with that, we can get back into Jordan's email. You said, I guess you're right, Dane. It was a long tangent, but it was still a fun discussion worth having. But.
All right.
As we alluded to about Dark Knight's Metal, that's what Jordan's net stop it in his email is. He goes, Dark Knight's Metal #4 didn't really do it for me. Spoilers. At this point, I've kind of accepted that this event isn't for me. It's just too out there for my taste. I found myself confused so much during DC Metal. This issue is a little more straightforward than some of the previous ones, but it's still just not my jam. There were some isolated moments that I liked, though. The scene with Aquaman and Deathstroke was a lot of fun. And I found it very powerful when Batman told Superman about how the Robins give him hope. Although I wish he had mentioned something about Catwoman too, especially given what's going on in the solo title right now. So again, I completely agree with you here, Jordan. What I was talking about with Mark, Dark Knight's Metal 4, it's starting to lose me too. It's just, a little bit too out there. The story is not grabbing me like I was hoping to. It's like, there's a lot of stuff. It's pretty much in the vein of a Grant Morrison event where you got to look back at previous stories and different histories, which, can be, sometimes confusing and a little strenuous as far as, how much you want to invest into a story, especially when there's so much out there. And like I said, with Doomsday Clock now, that's the bigger event in my opinion. And I'm kind of surprised DC didn't space them out a little bit to let Dark Knight's Metal finish. But yeah, it's not, especially with number 4, I think it's actually maybe probably my least favorite issue of the series so far. So I'm going to continue with it, see how it all wraps up. Hopefully it'll end on a good note. But like you said, pretty much the best part about number 4, in my opinion, was just the Batman and Superman stuff. And the stuff of what he mentioned about Robin was pretty cool too. So I'm in agreement with you. So hopefully it ends on a good note and picks up for, makes it a little more contained with the subsequent issues, but we'll see. But speaking of said solo title, as Jordan continues, Batman 37 is what I'm really excited to talk about. Tom King's Batman run is the exact opposite of DC Metal. It feels like it's absolutely for me and 100% works for my taste. I never laughed harder reading a comic book than I did reading Batman 37. Spoilers. The first Batcat double date was everything I could have hoped for. The interactions between both Bruce and Clark and Selina and Lois were a blast to read. The couple switching costumes to gain entry into Superhero Night was brilliant. This issue was a night at the fair that I never wanted to end. It's another one for the ages by King that fills my Batcat heart with joy. Oh, and the Olivier Chopel Batcat variant cover is beautiful. Yeah, Batman number 37, fantastic, as Jordan said. I love the premise of them going on a double date at a fair, but it was Superhero Night, so they had to dress in each other's costumes. Batman was Superman, Superman was Batman, and then Selina dressed up as Lois's outfit and Lois dressed up as Catwoman. Just tons of great interactions. And probably my favorite part of it was there was a lingering question going on throughout the issue. Could Batman hit a pitch thrown by Superman at high speed? And I just loved that idea. And then at the final page of the issue was Batman and Clark, or Superman, testing out that question. Superman throws a fastball, and the issue ends with Batman hitting it, and you see it flying into the stands, or at least into the batting cage where they were at. It was just a great moment, and just another, I guess, notch for Batman to have on Superman, knowing that he can hit his fastball. So I agree. It was just great. Again, the dynamic and the scenarios we're getting with Batman and Catwoman being engaged is paying off really, really well. We're just getting great stories here. So yeah, I agree with you again, Jordan. That was fantastic. And he continues saying, to answer your question, Tim, I had a couple of issues with Superman's return in Justice League. I knew I was going to have at least one issue going into the film. Resurrections are a trope of the superhero genre that I can't stand. Now I've got to direct some of my disappointment towards them adapting the death and return of Superman at Batman v Superman. They knew they had the first ever live-action Justice League film coming just a year later. They knew Superman needed to be in it, and therefore they knew they'd be resurrecting him very soon after killing him. So why kill him? Even if they had waited 10 movies before resurrecting Superman, it still would have bothered me. But it is made even worse when they do it so soon after killing him as they did. However, they could have made it at least somewhat powerful for me as a viewer had Danny Elfman use Hans Zimmer's Superman theme when resurrecting Superman. They did use it very briefly when the League was getting ready to resurrect Superman, but we didn't hear it at all after that. They didn't even play it at the Kent farm in the trailer, or like in the trailer. The Man of Steel score is my favorite score of all time. I find it remarkably moving. Using it would have added so much emotion to his resurrection that otherwise was lacking for me. So I get where you're coming from, Jordan, on that point. And I do agree where I think they shouldn't have even killed Superman at all. It was too soon. But yeah, I would have waited. And going into that, we kind of knew it. So I just kind of had to accept it for what it was. But I understand where you're coming from as far as that being a disappointment. And as always, he has a couple of questions. He says they're TV related since we're on a hiatus and I miss the DC TV shows right now. So I apologize to Dane in advance. His first question is, who are your top 5 favorite villains as they have been portrayed on Gotham? I bring this up because I have been so impressed with Professor Pig this season. And it got me thinking about how many incredible villain performances we've gotten on the show.
Really? It's been that good?
It has. I'll get to that after I read his choices, but I'll get into that and tell you why. He goes, I'll reiterate that Selena Kyle doesn't count as a villain, although if I were counting her, she'd of course be number 1. Spoilers. Number 5, the Riddler. Corey Michael Smith has delivered the sly, cunning, intelligent Riddler. I've been waiting so long to see in live action. He really makes Riddler menacing through his intellect. Number 4, Scarecrow. When he returned in the beginning of the season, they really played it like a horror film. His costume and his voice were both incredibly frightening. Number 3, Victor Zsasz. Anthony Carrigan somehow makes Zsasz both incredibly creepy and also quite humorous at the same time. I'd be on edge every time I were in a room with him, and yet I'd also probably chuckle at a lot of things he'd say. His standout scene for me is one from season 1, and when he went to the GCPD going after Gordon for Falcone. Number 2, Professor Pig. I've long felt that Professor Pig was one of the most underrated Batman villains. He's one of the few things to come out of Grant Morrison's run that I loved. He is the best example of how Gotham has given me great versions of Batman villains who I wasn't sure when I'd ever seen in live action. Michael Cerveris gives a spine-tingling performance, and the scene where he snapped and revealed his true self to Gordon reminded me so much of Edward Norton in Primal Fear. Number 1, Jerome Valeska. The most miraculous thing about Jerome is that it infuriates me that he is running around terrorizing Gotham before Bruce has become Batman, and yet he still managed to rank number 1 on my list. It has everything to do with Cameron Monaghan's performance. He takes elements from several different Joker performances over the years to craft an awesome original blend of his own. He's absolutely terrifying, and he gives me chills every time he's on screen. I also love how they eventually gave him that terrifying Death of the Family look. The tease of him at the end of his mid-season finale had me literally screaming. Yeah, so my picks, and first off, I agree, Jordan, I think I could probably say Gotham has been the best of the comic TV shows I'm watching this year, out of the CW ones. It's been the most entertaining and story, the season arc that it's having with Sophia Falcone trying to take over the crime families in Gotham and to snuff out Penguin as being the crime lord there. And like the stuff with Gordon being involved in the middle there, it's actually been really good. And Professor Pig, he's been one of the better portrayals of a Batman villain on this show. The way he looks, he talks, it's like Jordan said, just straight out of Grant Morrison's comics. So they really did a good job with Professor Pig. But for my list, I'd go number 5, Victor Zsasz, like for the reasons you said. It's a different portrayal. I mean, he doesn't even use knives yet, but it's a character you like seeing on screen when he's on there because of his charismatic ways that he does things. Number 4, I'll agree with you on that one, with that being Scarecrow. They did a great job, especially with his look and how they portrayed the fear gas. So that was a pleasant surprise this season of how well they did Scarecrow. The number 3, I'm going to go to Professor Pig. I would have had him higher for the reasons I said, but I felt the reveal they had at the mid-season finale where they killed him off and pretty much he was just a puppet of Sophia Falcone kind of brought him down a little bit. I loved what they did early on, like I said, straight from Grant Morrison stuff, and wish they would have maintained that. So that was a disappointment I had, which is why he kind of bumped down to number 3. Number 2, I'm going to go with Penguin. I just love Robin Lord Taylor's performance as Penguin. It gets better and better each season. Just the rises that he gets to reach the top of the crime bosses in Gotham, and then to see him fall, and then to come back up, and just the way he plans things and outsmarts his competition is always so well done. So, especially when he gets mad too, it's always an entertaining scene when you see Penguin just yelling at somebody that he's fed up with. So, I just really love his portrayal as Penguin. Then I'm going to agree with you, Jordan. Number 1 being Jerome. It shouldn't be this good because, like you said, Joker shouldn't even be involved in any shape or form at this point in Batman's life. But his performance is so good as the Joker, you just cannot help but wish he was actually playing a full-blown Joker. It is that good. Like you said, the actor Cameron Monaghan does a fantastic job, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him when it comes back from his mid-season break. So, yeah, things are actually looking pretty good for Gotham, surprisingly to say. I would have thought it would have been the show I've been enjoying most this season, but here we are.
I forget her name already. Will Smith's wife,
Oh,
Jada Pinkett Smith.
no,
Is she still on the show, or
no. Her character was finally killed off last season.
didn't she come back or something?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Came back and then they killed her off again, which is fine. I never really enjoyed her character. The show was better when she wasn't involved with being the main crime boss there.
You know, I'm kind of surprised that, and I don't mean this in a bad way, and I don't want this to happen, but I'm surprised the show hasn't been canceled because I don't think a lot of people are watching it.
It's got to be doing good enough, I guess. I mean, the last 4 seasons. I know it kind of has a bad reputation amongst Batman fans, but once you, I guess maybe those who are casual fans are just, get brought in and intrigued with the story and the characters they have. And for us Batman fans like me who still watch it, you just kind of accept it for what it is and still get some entertainment out of it, even though they do plenty of stuff that makes you roll your eyes or just like, how could they do something so different? But you just got to know what it is going when you watch it, which, helps me anyway when I watch it and enjoy some of the stuff, especially what they're doing now.
I still think they should. Now, here's my idea for a TV show, right? A DC Batman TV show. Have sort of the Waynes in the background and then focus it on the GCPD. Make it like police procedural. Just have the Waynes in the background and have all that craziness of Batman and the rogues gallery and all of that in the background, but then make it like, they have to find the killer, sort of thing, rather than just, having, what they're doing in Gotham, where it's like they're bringing in all these villains because it's not so fun if you have Bruce Wayne in a show and he's like almost Batman and there's none of his villains there.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's the idea I think everyone thought it was going to be going into it, but it just went full blown into Batman mythology.
It's like, let's have Poison Ivy in the show. Let's have Professor Pig. Let's have Joker. Let's have Riddler. Let's have Penguin and all of these guys.
Yep. They're just going to keep adding, it seems like. I don't think they're going to stop now, even though they're pretty much used everybody, so they're not going to have much left.
Yeah, just let me know when they get to who's a good villain. Just let me know when they get to Calendar Man.
Will do. I'm surprised they haven't used him yet, to be honest.
Yeah, no, he's like a small enough villain where it's like, it could fit, right?
Calendar I think he would fit old. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he fits in with the Falcone family drama with the Long Halloween too. It's part of that. So
yeah, just let me know when Calendar Man's on this show.
Will do. Then Jordan's final question is:
how would Tim, I'm sorry.
Oh,
is Mr. Freeze on that show?
He just pops up here and there. He's like one of Penguin's henchmen,
and he's already Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, he's Mr. Freeze.
I don't know about that, Tim.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty good story in season 2, but again, just happening way too soon.
Was it better now, Tim? Was it better than Heart of Ice?
Oh, heck no. That's a silly question, but it was better than Scott Snyder's revamped story for Mr. Freeze. To bring that up again.
We just had Mark on. It was a great talking to him, and now it's the end of the show.
Yeah.
I'm emailing Dustin right now. Sorry, we can't do it anymore. Creative differences.
Yeah, that's the line you got to use.
Yeah.
Everyone else in Hollywood uses it, so why can't podcasts use it? But he says, how would you rank the 4 Arrowverse shows this mid-season, at the mid-season mark this year? For me, I'm going to go number 4, Legends of Tomorrow. This has been the strongest season to date so far, but it is still at the bottom of the pile for me. It's closer to the other shows than it has ever been, though. I just don't have the emotional investment in it that I do the other shows. This is the show that I just kick back, turn off my brain, relax, and enjoy. This season has really leaned into its strengths, the absolutely bonkers humor, and it's benefited from doing so. Heatwave continues to be one of my favorite characters in the entire Arrowverse. Number 3, Arrow. This is the lowest it has ever been at the mid-season point on my list ranking the Arrowverse. That's sad for me because it is overall my favorite of the Arrowverse shows. I already went into detail about Arrow early in my email, so I won't go into much detail here. I do like the season, but it just hasn't lived up to my expectations. I loved almost all the Arrow characters so much, and the Deathstroke two-parter was incredible, so this season has certainly had those things going for it. Number 2, The Flash. This season, the show has gotten back to the more lighthearted tone of Season 1. I'm loving it, although I was also a fan of the darker tone of Season 3 personally. The Thinker is a fascinating villain so far. They've made him somewhat sympathetic by giving him an interesting backstory that ties back into Season 1. A secondary villain I'm loving is Amunet Black. Katie Sackhoff chews the scenery in every scene she's in. Elongated Man is a hilarious addition to the show. He's bringing the humor that I always wish we've gotten out of Kid Flash. Number 1, Supergirl. Wow, this season has been phenomenal. Last year it finished as my second favorite Arrowverse show, and this year it has taken the number 1 spot at the mid-season point. Rain has been an incredible villain. She's given me serious Davis Bloom voices, and her fight with Supergirl in the mid-season finale is one of the best fights in the history of the Arrowverse. It reminded me of a lot of the Battle of Metropolis. Speaking of Davis Bloom, there have been so many Smallville callbacks this season of Supergirl. Of course, we got Lois Lane as the new Allura, but also the entire episode Midvale felt like a love letter to Smallville, complete with a Chloe Sullivan email exchange. Another highlight of the season for me was Supergirl and Martian Manhunter going to Mars and finding Mayan Jones, played by the DCAU's Martian Manhunter. Carl Lumbly is just a joy to watch in the role. And Mayan, I'm probably butchering the John's father's name there, but him culminating to Earth customs have been so funny. Mon-El's return has also added somewhat heartbreaking aspect to the story, and the introduction of the Legion, which I called as soon as Mon-El went through the wormhole at the end of season 2, has been so exciting. It has me very eager to see more. Yeah, so for my ranking is going to be a little different. Only the last 2 are going to flip-flop. Number 4 for me is Legends as well. I actually think it's the weakest it's been since its run. I thought season 2 was great, and the overall story arc for this year just hasn't grabbed me yet. Number 3 is Arrow, like you said, just not living up to the potential it had to go off from season 5 and is kind of taking a step back for me. And number 2 would be Supergirl. I agree. I thought the storyline with Rain has been really good. And, just the whole dynamic between establishing the relationship of her character being friends with Kara and not, realizing she's going to be the villain has been really well done. The number 1, I'm going to go with The Flash. And I wouldn't have said that early on because there's pretty lackluster episodes this season. I agree. Elongated Man has been, a welcome addition to this team, has been funny. But it wasn't until it got to the Thinker storyline where I thought the season really kicked into high gear, because the mid-season finale, especially the plan and trap he laid out for Barry, which led him to getting arrested, I thought was really well done. So if it wasn't for those last few episodes, Flash probably would have been lower, but because they were so good, I put it at number 1. So hopefully it continues when it comes back. And that's going to conclude Jordan's email. So as always, thank you for Jordan. Took us a little longer to read this one, but it's a nice distraction having Mark come in for that fun conversation. So look forward to your next one.
Right, so now we can get to our comic book reviews. For this episode, it's going to be Batman number 38, Batman TMNT 2, number 2. That's 2, number 2.
Yeah, it's like a Two-Face title, huh?
Yeah.
TMNT.
And Doomsday Clock number 2. Our rating scale for this episode is going to be times that Mark needs to come on to explain to Tim something that Dane said.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So like we say at the beginning of every single comic book review section, it's going to be a lot of spoilers. So if you haven't read your books yet, want to pause this right here and then come back to this later. So, Tim, Batman number 38.
Yeah, so Batman number 38, this is kind of just a single arc story, which is a different type of story, but one that was pretty well done. Batman has crazy villains who have crazy origin stories, and Tom King almost took that to another level here, because it starts off with a kid whose parents were murdered. They were stabbed and they were cut all over. And this kid was kind of taught to admire or just admired Bruce Wayne so much and wanted to be like him, so much so that his butler would even call him Master Bruce. And so now, he's having a similar situation that happened to him, which happened to Bruce with his parents being killed. So he goes to Bruce for help and comfort, which of course Bruce provides. And then as Batman is going to go investigate. And the course of the story plays off like a detective story of Batman trying to figure out who killed his parents. And then, of the course of this, he finds more people getting murdered similarly. And his first suspect is Zsasz. Like I said, they're being cut. But it turns out that Zsasz isn't the person behind it. And then as Bruce continues, or I should say Batman continues to investigate, he finds another murder that leads to being more of Two-Face's, like a murder that Two-Face would do, where there's a lot of twos involved in, trying to lead Batman to the next victim and the next place where a murder is going to be. And over the course of the issue, we see Bruce talking to this young boy here who likes to refer to himself as Bruce Wayne, on just telling him, like, how do you deal with it? Does it get better? And, why does this happen? Or why does this happen to me? And Bruce is covering him. And it reminded me a lot of Bruce comforting Dick in the Robin's Reckoning episode, which is one of my favorite scenes in all of Batman the Animated Series. So not quite to that level, but it still invoked that emotion of Bruce trying to be there for someone who's going through the same thing that he is. So Bruce starting to put things together where things aren't adding up, where this is someone trying to make me believe that Zsasz is behind this murder or Two-Face is behind this murder. And then, he starts to realize that he's starting to put pieces together that, it's going to probably involve that kid who has been, Bruce has been comforting, and it leads him to his butler. And once he confronts his butler, he pretty much has realized that he's going to be, the one who's behind all this, wanting to, get all the money, being the boy's guardian with his parents being killed and all that, wanting the money, leading to believe that he was behind those murders. And then once we get to the section of the story where Bruce is talking to the boy again, he's like saying, how can this happen? He was supposed to take care of me, and trying to look for comfort in Bruce in ways that they can be similar to each other, and just finding ways to get through it the way that Bruce went through the struggles when his parents were killed. So all that was kind of cool, but the big reveal at the end is kind of a positive and a negative, because as Bruce is having dinner with Selina, and they're making jokes with Alfred as far as the butler, and glad he hasn't done that to Bruce like that kid's butler did to him. But then he starts thinking, you know what? Everything that's been going on here, the killing of the boy's parents, making it look like it was Zsasz and Two-Face, it's like really silly. It almost seems childish. And that's when Bruce realizes it's actually the kid who is behind all these murders. And the thing that makes it such a unique story and twist is that it's this kid being so obsessed with wanting to be Bruce Wayne, he's trying to recreate everything that happened to Bruce so he can be just like him, and in a way save Gotham through Bruce being like Bruce as he has done in real life. So Batman confronts him, and he's all saying, I was scared, but this means I get a chance to be brave, and this is all stuff Bruce is telling him. So he's taking what Bruce used as comfort and twisting it to justify all these murders that he's doing. So I liked it because it was such a unique way to have a new Batman villain who is this crazy kid trying to justify this by being like Bruce Wayne, but just, perverting it and twisting it in such an evil way. So I thought that did something different and unique, but at the same time, right away, I kind of knew where the story was going, where the kid was going to be involved with the murders. It was like, it was kind of predictable, but at the same time, it was still kind of a story worth telling, it, seeing this new perspective on someone who could think like this. So overall, it was a good issue. I'm going to go ahead and give it 3.5 out of 5 times we had to have Mark on to explain something that Dane said to Tim. All right, so next up, Batman and TMNT number 2. And this issue's, picking up where we left off, where Bane has infiltrated New York in the Turtles universe. So now Batman and Donatello and Damian have to get back there to try to help Donatello's family out. And so the beginning of this issue has, a fun sequence. First off, it's Batman confronting Ra's. They're Batman, Donatello, and Damian are looking for parts to complete the transport to send them to the Turtles universe. And just hearing Ra's al Ghul say the words Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's still something that I can't get over how awesome that we have this crossover. Seeing stuff like that is just so cool. But then we get a fun sequence with Donatello and Damien chasing Mr. Freeze in the sewers to get this part they need for that transport device to get to their universe. And this more great dialogue between Donatello and Damien here, especially after they apprehend Mr. Freeze. And Donatello is saying, you know what, I just got to say, it's really impressive what you do creating your cold gun and, using like diamonds to power your suit to survive. It's really impressive. And Damien's all, you know what, we really don't geek out and have fanboy moments over our villains once we stop them. Donatello, well, you probably should. You got really cool ones. So that was fun. Then they do finish the transport device and go to the Turtles universe. And this is where we get, some good character moments here once the Turtles, Donatello, or once Raphael, Michelangelo, and Leonardo, we pick up with them, they're just having a hard time dealing with Bane. We don't see any of the fights, but it's been a struggle trying to keep peace in the streets of New York with Bane being so overpowering. And, he really injured Michelangelo, and they're bringing him back to the sewers. And that's where they see Donatello, Batman, and Damien together. Then I really liked here where it's revealed, Damien says, at first the Turtles think, oh, cool, Donnie, you went to Gotham to bring reinforcements to help us fight Bane. And Damien's all, no, your brother screwed all this up. He's the one who caused all this. And then Raph just gets in his face, saying that we're out there getting hurt in the cities as the worst it's ever been, and it's all because of you. Of course, Splinter has to calm down Raphael, and then we get a nice little reunion with Batman and Splinter, who had a cool little skirmish in the first series. So just seeing them, see each other again and the respect they have was pretty cool. So I liked all that stuff, some cool character moments. And then on the Bane side of things, we see him just overpowering or just having take control of the Foot Clan, and how the only ones who are trying to resist his takeover are Bebop and Rocksteady. And we get I wish that we actually saw them fight Bane, but they were all saying, "Oh, we'll take this down. We're mutant rhinos and warthogs. We'll be able to face them." But once they see Bane, they immediately just kneel and submit to his rules. So I wish we kind of would have saw a Bane versus Bebop and Rocksteady fight. That would have been cool. But I guess I could live with them still joining his team, and maybe we'll see a fight eventually. But the thing is, Batman tells the Turtles that Bane needs Venom, and it doesn't exist in this universe, so he'll run out eventually, and that'll be our time to strike. But Bane knows this, and he has a plan. So he brings, the resident scientist in the TMNT universe, which is, of course, Baxter Stockman. He kidnaps him, and then he has one vial of Venom left, and he's going to have Baxter Stockman make more for him. So that's where the issue left off. Another, again, not the most eventful issue in the story so far, but still more great character moments. And I'll never get tired of seeing the Turtles interact with the characters from the Batman universe. So I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5 times. We have to have Mark on to explain comparison made by Dane. And then finally we get to Doomsday Clock. Man, this issue, I love the first one, but this one's even better because we're getting into the stuff what's making this event so exciting. The Watchmen characters interacting with DC characters, and we got that here, and I loved it. But first off, we get a sequence where Rorschach and Ozymandias are preparing to leave their universe to hopefully get to where Dr. Manhattan went, which is, of course, we know the DC universe, before the missile strike launches and blows up the city, or most of the country probably too. But before they leave, we're getting shown as the characters Marionette and Mime, as Rorschach rescued from the previous issue, and they need them for Dr. Manhattan. And we kind of get the explanation why here, as Rorschach and Ozymandias are watching an old security camera footage of them robbing a bank, which I got to say was a unique and entertaining way to see a bank robbery by these type of villains who really aren't a threat, because Mime is just holding a bank teller hostage with his finger, pretending it's a gun, but yet the bank teller is still very much afraid of him. It's like, even though they don't seem threatening, they still have that effect where everyone would be afraid, and you really buy it as you read it in the story. So it was a fun little sequence there to see how these two characters would be villains in the Watchmen universe. But the main point of this flashback is that we get to see Dr. Manhattan come to apprehend him. And as he's about to vaporize Mime, Marionette gets in the way, just saying, "Don't kill him." But we know Dr. Manhattan can easily wipe them out with the point of a finger. But it makes the point that he realizes she is pregnant with a baby, so he lets them survive. And, that's what makes Ozymandias and Rorschach, or Ozymandias in particular, realize, that's why we need them to have that be a moment from John's past that we can use to bring him back, because they say, Rorschach says he's killed people for less than that. And Ozymandias agrees that's the point. He knows he's like physically and emotionally, I manipulated him before, and I can probably do that again with this scenario to bring him back. So they're about to leave, but then the missile strike does happen, and they barely just make it out. Get caught in the explosion, and I just love the way the artwork and the panels transition here from. There's this cool cool layout where you see the explosion happening, and these panels you see Ozymandias reacting to the explosion, mime and marionette. Then you see Rorschach's face, and it zooms into his mask and the ink block paintings, and then on the next page, it transitions into, a Rorschach test that Bruce Wayne is going through at Wayne Enterprises. And it just the transition from that was so beautifully done, laid out perfectly in how it transitions from the Watchmen universe to the DC universe with Bruce having this test. And he has to have this test done annually at the request of the shareholders. And I just love the images of the ink block test. You can easily tell what you think Bruce is going to say, because when I look at it, it's supposed to represent Bruce sitting by the bodies of his parents at the time of their murder, but he just says different things, just kind of messing with the psychiatrist there. And then at this point, we learn more. And if I remember right, Doomsday Clock takes place a year before or a year after the events we're seeing right now in the DC timeline, because there's things going on here that we haven't heard before. And one of the big things is this thing called the Superman theory, which is causing unrest a lot of places in the world, and especially in America. And the Superman theory, which it goes into in those, newspaper clipping sections of the comic at the very end, after the main thrust of the issue, the last few pages tells you stories of what's going on and builds the universe up a little more. And that section, it says how the Superman theory is an event where government are thinking other places in the world and countries that superheroes are mainly from America. And why is that? And they're thinking, a lot of the heroes that are coming up are government, sponsored or created by that. And it's come out that characters like Metamorpho and his accident was actually a staged event sponsored by the government, also with Kirk Langstrom and Man-Bat. So that causes unrest and an uproar in the country. And even those in Gotham to, even not subscribe or believe in Batman anymore, because we have a conversation with Bruce and Lucius how he says Gotham, they don't trust Batman anymore. Bruce is all, have they ever really? And him and Lex are in competition. Actually, Wayne Enterprises is in danger of being bought out by LexCorp, and the board could actually sell. So both of them are in competition to explore more of the metahuman gene. And that's where Bruce is, having struggles on, his personal front as far as trying to save his company, but also, having a lot of the country not believe in heroes anymore. And this is another great transition, or this panel layout where Bruce is looking up in the sky. He sees the bat signal amongst the clouds. And then we see Night Owl's ship, Archimedes, just fly through it and just crash down into the streets of Gotham. And just seeing just crazy again. One of the things I liked about the crossover, I was excited for, seeing Rorschach and Ozymandias walk the streets of Gotham and kind of talk about this universe. And I just love the conversation have where they go to the library to see, who to go to see how they could or the best way possible to find Dr. Manhattan the fastest. And so they go to the Gotham Library, and what they realize is that this world is like theirs. Like in some ways it's ahead, in some ways it's behind, but it has so much more heroes. And I like the dialogue they have here that even Ozymandias says that some of these characters were even fictional in our world. And so Rorschach responds saying, fiction in our world, but maybe Dr. Manhattan created them here. And Ozymandias says, or he could be one of them, kind of maybe playing in disguise as one of these characters. So just these crazy theories that you could take from that, and the possibilities of what Dr. Manhattan has been doing this whole time in the DC universe. So I just like how they're explaining this world has so much more heroes, and at the same time, it's heroes they're familiar with in their universe, but they were just fictional. So a lot of cool stuff there. And then they decide they're going to go after the two smartest people in this universe. And of course, that's Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor. So this is where the issue kind of ends, where Rorschach and Ozymandias split up. Rorschach's going to go to see Bruce Wayne. Ozymandias is going to go see Lex Luthor. And I just love the artwork here by Gary Frank and having Rorschach infiltrate Wayne Manor. Just he sees this piece of food left on the table with Bruce's breakfast left there by Alfred, and he just eats it. And is just looking for a secret entrance to the Batcave, and he finds the clock tower and goes in. And he has some great dialogue here as he's walking through the Batcave saying, only monsters keep trophies like this. And he goes, this reminds me of Walter Kovac, the original Rorschach. And he says they're kind of similar here. It's how they couldn't let go of the past. They're just obsessed with reliving it over and over. And that is kind of true with Bruce and what motivates him to be Batman and his parents' murder. So I like that dialogue. And then Ozymandias and Lex Luthor had some great dialogue too. Ozymandias recounts his plan, which in the original Watchmen, to try to unite the world. And Lex Luthor just had the best response to it. He goes, "You're surprised that humanity wasn't saved by that plan?" He goes, "If you're the smartest man in your planet, I'd hate to meet the dumbest." And just Lex showing how, overconfident he is, and just, he's not humble in any way to show how superior he is to Ozymandias. And I love that. So, they have their confrontation. Bruce, Rorschach set off the alarm for the Batcave. So Bruce goes back, and then we see them face to face. I like the dialogue they had too. It was just something simple. Bruce goes to him, "You ate my breakfast," and Rorschach just goes, "Yeah, I did." And that's where it ends on their front. But the big surprise and reveal in this episode is that while Lex and Ozymandias are talking, a gunshot rips through the room. It shoots Lex, and Ozymandias is able to get out of the way. And you just see the words, "Last time you came at me, I was confused, drunk." And then Ozymandias just says, "Impossible." Then we get the reveal that it's the comedian. He's somehow in this universe. And I think there's more to meets the eye here than it's just, the comedian that was in Watchmen and that Ozymandias killed. There's got to be some bigger explanation to why he's here and still alive. And I can't wait to find that out. So yeah, I love this issue. This one, we're only on issue 2 of a 12-part series, but this is exactly what I was hoping for with Watchmen crossing over to the DC universe with these small character interactions, and I can't wait for more. So I'm going to give this one 4.5 out of 5 times that Mark had to come on and explain the comparison that Dane made.
It's a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. So it's definitely living up to the hype for me.
Well, good. So yeah, I guess that's it. Right, Tim?
Yep.
Our first show of the year.
Yeah, it was a big one, too.
yeah, it was really long.
But tons of fun and a great discussion. So, yeah, it was a great way to kick off the year.
So, yeah, just go over to BatmanUniverse.net, Facebook.com/BatmanUniverse, Twitter handles @BatmanUniverse, Tim's Twitter handles @TimG311. I'll say it, Tim.
Thank you, Dane.
This is your 1 year, Tim.
Yeah.
1 a year.
Either 1 a year or whenever something big happens with 311.
Or if you don't like episode 9
or the Han Solo movie.
Or the Han Solo. And my Twitter handle is @DaneSaysBanana. Rate and reviews on iTunes, and if you want to send in an email, you can send it to batfanswithoutpants@gmail.com. So with that, like we say at the end of every single show,
we love each and every one of you with all of our bad hearts.
With all of our bad hearts. So with that, see you guys next time.
See you later.
Stealing cat, 2 faces of a coin. Scared